Okay. Greetings from Tokyo. Wondering if everything is coming in okay. Can you hear me okay? We'll get started very soon. Just give us one moment and we will begin shortly. I'm also setting up here. So, great. Cooper Glover, hello. Mike, Eli, hello. It's nice to see you. Today we will be talking about Moonraker, the 1979 film directed by Lewis Gilbert. Very interesting film. Sam454, hello. It's nice to see you. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. One moment here. Sorry, it's still quite early for me. It's just shy of 6 a.m. now, so just kind of getting myself. I woke up about 30 minutes ago, so I'm just still getting myself prepared here. So please, my apologies, but just give me one moment. Okay. How's everyone doing, by the way? Hope everyone is well. Okay, good. We're getting better. Yeah. Okay, so let's see who's here. Aaron Beering is here. Hello. It's nice to see you. Scolder22, hello. Wolfgratz, hello. Okay, Brandon is here. Hello. Great. Thank you very much. It's nice to see you. Hello. And Samuel Stevens is here as well. Hello. It's nice to see you all. A real great pleasure. Okay. Really is nice. All right. I think we can maybe start to get going here. Vaughn is here. Hello. It's nice to see you all. So greetings from Tokyo. So today, let us begin a discussion of the film from 1979. This is the James Bond film, which is called Moonraker, and it is starring Roger Moore as James Bond, and it's a very fascinating film, a film that I think is a kind of it's a kind of exciting, thrilling film for me, and it's one that I've always loved ever since I first saw it as a kid on network TV in the United Kingdom, and ever since then I've just been so enthralled and fascinated by this film. As I said, I saw it I don't know how old I must have been. It must have been maybe 8, 9, 10, something like that. So that I think that helps me to see, or that helps me in terms of or that aids me in terms of how I look at this film even now. And I don't mean with a sense of nostalgia, but I mean in the sense of I always remember how I first felt as a kid watching this and just marveling at the great splendor of the work and the beautiful extravagance of it all, and just the way it goes so supremely over the top in an so James Bond, a Lewis Gilbert James Bond sort of way. And when we say Lewis Gilbert, we have to remember that this is in the tradition, if you will, of the other Lewis Gilbert films in the series. So You Only Live Twice and The Spy Who Loved Me. And so we have this huge sense of spectacle and epic, and a plot that has a sense of how should I put it? It doesn't have a sort of nuanced Cold War-esque type of complexity John le Carré type of complexity. It's very much and it's very much, I think, an easy to follow plot in terms of a villain whose plan is, I think, it's quite nefarious, of course, but it's also very, in a James Bondian sort of way. It's very straightforward. So I think that's really wonderful about the film. But this is how I'll approach the film today, Moonraker. So today is going to be the live stream about Moonraker, and I hope that you are interested. And if you are, please feel free to join us in the live chat, and you can talk to us, talk to me, and we'll hopefully have some nice conversations going forward. So just a few preliminaries before we get started, as I always do, which is, first of all, this will be about Moonraker, 1979 film, and so I will be talking, of course, about very specific details of the plot where necessary, which means that if you haven't seen the film Moonraker, please turn off this live stream, and you can always come back to this video at any time because it will be uploaded as a video. And so you can always come back anytime after you finish seeing the film. But I will be talking about specific plot details. Also, when I talk about the film, as I say, I'm not speaking as an expert. I don't hold myself out as an expert in this film. So I'm just talking as a fan, pure and simple. And as a fan who, as I say, seen this film since a number of years back, and just has constantly returned to this film. But I don't know everything about it. So, and I just know what I've read about it through the years and the like. And so, if you have any questions for me, there might be some that I won't be able to answer. But also, again, this is just a very, hopefully it's going to be a fun conversation about a very fun film. And you can always talk in the live chat. It's open, so please feel free to leave a comment behind, and we will try to have. I'll pick it up if we can, and we can have a nice conversation going forward. Please understand that the live chat, of course, is a place for people to leave comments, and today's topic is Moonraker. But you can talk about anything that you want to talk about. Just make sure that you always maintain a level of mutual respect with each other. Agreement is fine, disagreement is also fine, but even where we disagree, we should always maintain a sense of respect for what it is we have to say, because as I have mentioned before, you, my dear friends, have always afforded to me a great deal of respect and courtesy, which I really appreciate, very much so. And so I'm always relying on you, all of you, my dear friends, to make sure that you continue that spirit and maintain that same sense of attitude when talking with others. So I know I can rely on all of you, my dear friends, for that going forward. So thank you in advance for that. And regarding the live chat, if you have any questions for me or comments for me, I will be very happy to pick them up, and I'll try to address everyone in the live chat to the best of my ability. But as it happens, as you know, I'm doing the very best that I can, but sometimes my best is not enough, or a lot of times my best is not enough, and so I will sometimes miss a comment by accident, or maybe there might be a comment that maybe it's not having to do with the film. And so if you have any questions for me or comments for me that aren't related to Moonraker specifically, then if you don't mind, I might just very gently skip over them for now. And if you wanted to still ask me, you can come back to me, maybe leave a comment behind in a video or somewhere else, and I'll try to get back to you. But for the time being, for now, let me focus in on questions directed to me about, or comments directed to me about Moonraker, and then we can go from there. Yeah, so without further ado, let us begin our conversation in earnest of Moonraker. But first, let me just go to the live chat and see how things are going. And so we have a lot of, so as I've, let's see, here we go. Armand is here. Hello, it's nice to see you. And Wolfgratz is, there might be some keyboard typo issues, but that's okay. That's perfectly fine. I hope those are remedied very soon, my friend. And Timothy, hello. Hello, it's 5 p.m. where you are. That's great. Rob is here. Hello, my friend. It's always nice to see you. And Kubrick Lover 1972, our dear friend who's also serving as a moderator for the live chat as well. So thank you. Let's please join me in thanking Kubrick Lover 1972, our dear friend, for everything that he does. So thank you. Arigatou gozaimasu. I like Moonraker, I guess, as you say, but I think it's kind of uneven. But the parts I like, I really love. The music of John Barry and the sets are incredible, though. Yes, and I'll try to get to those. The work by Ken Adam and the music by John Barry. And Wolfgrat says, I like the sets, guys, and more commentary, and the more commentary as ever. Yes, yes. Skalder 22 says, just yesterday saw an old interview with Sean Connery on YouTube, and he was asked about Moonraker. His opinion for it was FX over substance. Yeah. And Kubrick Lover 1972 says, I find the music for the film achingly beautiful, especially going from where Bond is beckoned to Drax's secret base, the Amazon jungle, by one of Drax's beautiful women. Yes, yes. Right after he goes over the falls, and or not after he goes over he escapes, and Jaws and his henchmen go over the falls in the boat, and he's able to crash land, and then he sees suddenly this woman in a white dress, and the beautiful, very luxurious sounding, and somewhat also there's an undertone of the ominous, I would say, also in that moment of the John Barry score, which is, I think, a completely it's one of my favorite John Barry scores, which is an interesting sentence in and of itself, because I think all the John Barry scores in the James Bond film series, I think, are absolutely top notch. But there's something very there's something very much, it's the mode of John Barry in this film. It's 1979, and so he's already making that, I don't want to say transition, but his musical style, shall we say, has already been seen as sort of evolution from this sort of jazzy type of feel that we saw in the early Sean Connery films to a more orchestral based sound. Although we did start seeing that, of course, in the past films, even in the Sean Connery films. Don't get me wrong, but there is more of an emphasis, I would say, on the orchestral based score, and we see this in the reliance on the orchestra when rendering the James Bond theme, shall we say. And so that's I think it's really nice. It's also nice because we have John Barry, and I love this period of John Barry music. It's just before he goes into his sort of, it's often referred to as his out of Africa type of point in his career, but I always like to refer to it as the Moonraker black hole point of John Barry's music. I really love this moment, but anyway, yeah, that's a really good point. And I'll try to get more into John Barry's music as we go along, and the like. Halifax is here. Hello, it's nice to see you. Yes. Oh, great to see you. It's really nice to see you. Let's see. Great. Wolfgratz is here. Right. Speaking about Roger Moore. Yes. Oh, hello, and please forgive me for my pronunciation. Is it Joachim von Mare? I hope I got that right. Please forgive me please correct me if I'm wrong. Great cinematography in this movie, yes. And Kubrick Lover 1972 says, I also love the music when Bond and Dr. Good come into outer space. Yes, that great music, and the reveal of the space station. Or no, not even, but when the Moonrakers are in space, right, and they're figuring out what's going on, and it cuts to the little shot of the cargo, right? And instead it's the couples, and they're seated in their seats there, and we see them. And Bond puts it together in his head that this is a kind of Noah's Ark type of villainous plot on the part of Drax. So, yeah. And then the final reveal of the space station when the light shines on it and it comes out of shadow. It's a great moment. Yeah. And Rod says, James Mason was offered the role of Drax. Yes, I do know this, yes. But of course, the great Lonsdale is is Drax, right? So that's a wonderful, wonderful role. Michael Lonsdale. We'll get to the great character of Drax later. Let's see. And Mateo's here. Hello. It's nice to see you. Thank you very much. Yeah, Wolfgrat says, I thought Lonsdale might be slightly too laid back, to be honest. Some of his jokes were a bit thrown away, I thought. Yes, I will get to that as well, just my thoughts about Lonsdale's performance and Drax. I think, actually, well, actually, let me just begin in earnest. I'll hold on that thought, Wolfgratz, and let's see. What Mike Eli says, does anyone else have the false memory of Jaws' girlfriend having braces? I swear, it's in my memory from childhood. Yeah, I think maybe it's because of the association with Jaws, I suppose. There is the moment when they smile, yeah. So, but that's another really, I think, key moment of the film Moonraker is the evolution and development of Jaws. So, yeah, and Kubrick Lover 1972 says the scene with the cable car in Brazil, one of the stuntmen almost fell off the cable car, but held on by one hand, wasn't being held by a wire, so he could have fell off. Yes, I think, yeah, there is a certain death-defying aspect of that particular stunt and others, but it's great, right? Hang on, James. The thought had occurred to me. But let me now just now go back. I'll go to the live chat in a moment, but Kubrick Lover 1972 and my dear friends, please continue on with the conversation there, and I'll return in a moment. But what I'd like to start with first is a kind of just a brief background as to where I am as far as this film is concerned, and how I came to the film, and where I have come in terms of my own passage of time and my own growing up with James Bond and with this film in particular. So, as I mentioned or alluded to a little bit earlier, I first saw this film on network TV. And I had always begun watching James Bond films, but I hadn't begun to try to watch all of them until around the mid to late 80s, something like that. So I would have been not 10 years old yet, so it would have been 7, 8, 9, something like that. And also around this time, I had because of my family, my mother and father and I, we moved to the United Kingdom, where we lived for a number of years. And during that time, as I think often the case, the James Bond films, or at least a select section of them, would be playing on broadcast TV in the United Kingdom. And it would be, I think it was, I want to say London Weekend Television, LWT. And so that was really great. Oh, I'm sorry. By the way, is the sound okay? I'm sorry. Is the sound okay for my mic? I always have to ask because I don't want to have bad sound. Is this? Could you? I'm sorry to stop. Is the sound okay with the mic? Great. Thank you very much, Vaughn. Thank you. So that's good. So. Picking up where I just left off. So in the United Kingdom, these films would oftentimes be broadcast on TV, LWT, where I was. And one of those films was Moonraker. And I remember they would always show a little promo, a little teaser for the next film, which would be whatever it was the next day or next week or something like that. So on a particular weekend, I was watching a James Bond film, whatever it was, and then the promo for the next film, which would be next week, was Moonraker. And I saw the promo, and it had all these cuts, and it had the shot on the cable car, and it had the great line, and Dr. Goodhead says, "Hang on, James," and the thought had occurred to me, and I was laughing out loud as a kid watching that. I thought that was such a cool line, and it had the shot where Bond was in the the Drax residence at night, and he's kissing Corinne Dufour, right? Or as Roger Moore says, when she says, "Oh, my name is Corinne Dufour," and then he says, "Oh, so you're going to show me around, are you, Karen?" I love how Roger Moore pronounces her name as kind of Karen, even after she says Corinne. But anyway, there's also the shot where Bond is kissing Corinne in the room there, and she's a little bit hesitant. She's like, her eyes are open. She's like, she's got this look on her face, like, what the heck are you doing, kind of thing, which is really funny as well. And the moment when Bond is pushed out of the airplane at the beginning without a parachute, and that wonderful opening titles or pre-title sequence, so I thought, wow, with this little promo that was edited together by the network TV people, whoever that may have been, it looked so cool, and this would be the film that would be playing next time on LWT. And so I was so excited. Wow, this looks such a cool movie. And then the broadcast date came, and I was ready and watching the film. We had a VCR, so I would also record where I could. And that was a great time. And when we saw the film, or when I saw the film, I was just right. I think the phrase is very apt. I was over the moon. Really, it was so fun. I loved all the situations. I thought that it was really cool to see the boat chase in Venice, and how Bond escaped, and the whole thing with the inflatable platform, and just goes through the thing. And I thought the pigeon was really funny, and I thought the dog was really funny. How the dog just goes like. I just thought that was so fun, and the way that the waiter's pouring the beer on the guy, and the guy, he just looks up, and he doesn't even shout. He's just like looking up. He's like like that. I mean, if someone were pouring beer on my head in the middle of Venice, I think I would maybe shout or say something, or maybe stand up. But the guy who's on whose head the beer was being poured was just looking up. He's like, "What are you doing?" I thought that was really funny. But and the fight with Cha as well, and the whole thing with the little gravity simulator, and Cha's face. He's so sinister. He's got that great evil villain henchman look, and he's just I love my red wires, and then all of a sudden, when Bond gets the upper hand with the dart gun, or the wrist gun, Cha's face is just he's so sad, right? And I think Michael G. Wilson on one of the commentaries says, you almost want to give him a hug, or Christopher Wood, you almost want to give him a hug, and and then the whole thing with the space station, and the fight in space with the lasers, and the good guys and the bad guys, and the great John Barry score. It was just, and Jaws, right? He was a baddie, but then he becomes a goodie. And all these elements, and the thing at the end with, you have to get the globes, right, and he has to go on manual, and he says, steady, so cool, absolutely cool. And and then as the years passed, I would always come back to this film with those same feelings of this film being one of the coolest films ever. I couldn't believe it, and it was so much fun. And so I would always come back to this film. It would be one of my favorite pastimes of watching films in the James Bond series. And of course, I would watch other James Bond films, and I love those as well. I was beginning to get a sense that these films each have potentially a very different tone. And this was when I was beginning to start, perhaps, to get a better awareness or recognition in my own head of how perhaps this might be due to the difference in maybe who these names were. Who is the director of this film? Why is this name a little bit different, or quite different than, say, the other names that you see on other film title credits? And so this was a really great maybe introduction, perhaps, or way into starting to understand just the nature of the artistic vision, perhaps, and how that might be shaped based on who is the actual filmmakers, right? It's a very obvious point now, but again, when you're a kid, when you first start to begin to potentially get a little sense of this, it becomes a really exciting thing. And then as I got a little bit older, I discovered the novel. I was able to find the novel, and I began to read the novels, including Moonraker, which is very different. The source inspiration for this is very different, so much so that there are elements, as we know, those of us who know the novel, but it is its own really wholly separate entity. There's talks about the Drax Corporation and the Drax Group, how it has so many subsidiaries, or he owns so many subsidiaries around the world, manufacturing component parts for the Moonraker shuttle, right? So one of those subsidiaries perhaps is in Rio. Carlos and Wilmsburg, right? They're very big importers in Rio, and according to Manuela, they are very likely a subsidiary of the Drax Group. And so there's a lot of subsidiary parent corporation relationships that are hinted at in this film. But none so in terms of the relationship between Moonraker, the novel, and Moonraker, the film. There is no, I would dare say, there is no sense of a parent-subsidiary relationship in terms of a close-knit affinity in the plot details of the book versus the film. They are wholly separate. Which is actually a really fascinating thing for anyone who's interested in reading the Ian Fleming novels. I think perhaps my favorite novel is Moonraker, the Ian Fleming novel. That is really an excellent James Bond novel. So anyone who's interested in maybe getting into the novels, of course I would recommend maybe going in order, starting with Casino Royale. But if you're interested in maybe just one, trying it out, Moonraker is a really great one. I can recommend that 1,000%. But going back to the film, so reading the novel is also part of the fun and joy of getting more into the James Bond universe. And then along the way, I began to become very surprised, right? Because I began to understand that there were many voices in the James Bond fan community. This was still before the internet, but as I was growing up, I would still find James Bond books, the encyclopedia book and the like, and try to read up on reviews, anything I could find. And what I would more often than not find in terms of written print in this film would be very negative takes on the film. This was a dud. This was, half a star or a turkey film or something of that nature. And that way it was over the top. It was ludicrous. It was top heavy. It totally falls apart, especially in the final third of the film. There's no sense of suspense or anything of that nature. And I would be reading these write-ups, and I would be genuinely very surprised because, as I would say, for many years, ever since I was a kid growing up, I held the strong belief that this was a really great one. And because I felt it was great, I had naturally assumed in my head that many people felt the same, at least as expressed in the written word, and that were published and that were readily available for me and for anyone else in the world to access. But that didn't seem to be the case, at least my impression is in that way. So that really was a bit of a surprise. And I felt similarly about other films in the James Bond series, to be perfectly honest, and we'll try to get to those in later live streams. But with Moonraker, I was incredibly surprised. And then, so with that knowledge, I actually went back to the film again, and I tried to see maybe if there was, by means of osmosis, maybe I would be affected by those negative write-ups of the film. And so I watched the film again, but I still thought it was great, and that feeling persists for me even right now. And I saw this film as recently as last night, in fact, and so I still got a great kick out of it last night. I mean, it's still so much fun. It is it's so maybe outdated in terms of what might be called a really obvious sense of political incorrectness when it comes to, say, James Bond's first introduction to Holly Goodhead at the beginning, right? And he says, a woman, right? And that kind of, it's you just have to laugh at this sort of stuff, as you do with any other elements of this nature in any other Bond films from the past. And it has a great Roger Moore performance. I think it's really splendid. Roger Moore is able to do a lot in this particular performance as James Bond. He's a little bit cocky at the beginning. He's got that wonderful Roger Moore air about him, and his Roger Moore's James Bond is Roger Moore's James Bond, and there's a real sense of relaxation, perhaps, for lack of a better phrase, and he's really into it. And I'll try to get more into those details about Roger Moore's performance later in the live stream. But to cut those comments short for now, let me say in closing, before I get to the live chat here, I still love this film. I absolutely love this film. And as I say, I don't necessarily see my love of this film as reliant on, say, a feeling of nostalgia. I don't think it's nostalgia. I think it's more to do with the fact that I recall how I felt as a kid watching this film. And when I watch these films, I feel like a kid. So it's not like, how should I put it? It's not like looking back on how I felt as a kid many years ago, but it's rather those feelings that I had many years ago have carried through and are still with me, even as as a 40-year-old something man in Tokyo. So and I'm so happy about that. I'm so grateful that a film like this can exist in order for me to feel this way, because that's something I think that's becoming a little bit more difficult as the years pass for me. But suffice to say, this film has that for me, very much so, and I'm so grateful for being able to have run into this film and encountered this film at a fairly early age when I was able to, and then to be able to enjoy it even now. So that's my general sense of Moonraker. So, but as I say, I understand if anyone is negative about it, and I don't mind in the slightest. I don't take it personally. And I acknowledge that there are some pretty odd things about the film, and I'll try to get to those later. But well, before I forget, let me just say right now, one of the things I think is really odd is this is one of the interesting dilemmas of the James Bond filmmakers and the James Bond universe, is that James Bond is so bigger than life, isn't he? And he has this he's James Bond. Everyone who watches the films knows James Bond, but we always have to remember that James Bond is a secret agent, and the whole construct of the character of James Bond is that he is a spy. He is someone who is going kind of clandestine doing spycraft in a clandestine, hidden manner. And so that assumes that no one automatically knows his identity or he's able to hide himself. Whereas here in Moonraker, from the very outset, it is he who is sent to Drax as a kind of representative of the British government. And Drax even acknowledges, your reputation precedes you, Mr. Bond, which is suggestive of the fact that he is so well known even in this universe, which is quite contrary and to the whole construct of the James Bond character as spy. So that makes no sense. But that's another way to say that in this conception of James Bond, or conception, or as Drax would say it, the splendor of the conception. James Bond is a superhero. And so as a superhero, everyone knows James Bond, even in the film universe. So I think that's what it is. So that accounts for James Bond, I think, being so well known. He's not a spy, he's a superhero here. But that's okay too, because we will, as we say, for anyone who doesn't like this film, would rather have the down-to-earth, rugged Cold War tones of the character, we will certainly get that in a lot of doses when we get to the next films in the series, which is For Your Eyes Only and the John Glenn years. And we can also see that in films past, in particular the Terrence Young era of James Bond with Sean Connery. But before I go any further, let me now return to the live chat and see what is going on here. So great, thank you. So I last left off with Cooper Glover 1972's comment, and we will go from there. Let's see. Dustin is here. Hello, Dustin, my friend. It's nice to see you as always. Vaughn Jarvie says, do you think that the wide variety of settings lend themselves to the film's adventurous nature and develop the escapades of Bond in a successful nature, or are they a bit unfocused? Now, that's a very good question. I think it's a great strength. One of the great strengths is that there are many locations, and even locations that, it even goes to the point where a different location is used that's actually standing in for somewhere else, right? Because I understand he's meant to be in California at the beginning, Bond is, and that's where he meets Corrine, and the helicopter to the Drax residence, the Drax estate, and everything, all the factories, and then the wonderful introduction of the Drax residence, right? And the great use of the John Barry score, da 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 da, and then we see the I love that, and then we see the great close-ups of the astronaut trainees doing their warming up exercises, right? It's great, and I love how one of them stops. And she looks up and she stops her exercise as she looks up at the helicopter, right? And there's another one she's able to do her exercises and look up at the same time. That's really great. But my point is that location is meant to be California in the film, but it's actually France standing in for California, which is an interesting thing, because as we know of the production history and where this was made in terms of France and production and sort of co-France UK production background. So that's one, and then we also have Venice, Rio. It's so many, right? And what's I think wonderful about the variety of locations is I think what's great is that they're really used so well, really used very well. In other words, the locations are really, they feel like they are just taken advantage of to a very maximum level. And for example, with Venice, we actually go into the canals. We actually have a chase through the canals, which you think about it now, that's incredible. And we see bullet ricochet effects off of actual, I think, rocks on the canal, the bridges there, which is really incredible. and people falling into the waters and everything like that. I mean, we did see a Bond film in the past take place in Venice for a little bit, right, which was From Russia with Love. And so I always thought, right, and there's a little thing, I'll get to more details about From Russia with Love later when we talk about that film, but I always thought that there was a great little thing about how there's a little bit of a plot involving a film, a little thing of film, and it goes into the Venice waters, and there's a little very famous thing about a hand going like this, and so I always thought, well, maybe if James Bond has returned to Venice, and maybe he or maybe some of the bad guys who are chasing him fall into the waters, what they could do is they could swim around, and they could go there. Maybe they could go to the bottom there, and maybe they can find the little film that was thrown into the waters during one of the sequences in From Russia with Love. But oh well. And they dry it off, and it would still be repaired. And they try, oh, what's this piece of film? Let's put it on. Oh my goodness, this is unexpected. But anyway. Yeah. So, I love, and also Rio. I thought that was a great use of location, and just the way that the whole landscape of the world is looking. It just looks so beautiful when Bond is there and he's at the cable car place and he's looking through the telescope, and we see him find Dr. Goodhead, who's also looking through the telescope. And I love Dr. Goodhead's, Lois Chiles' Dr. Goodhead's look when she sees Bond. You could tell, I mean, at this point, she is still like, I hate Bond look. She's like, ugh. I love that. That's so wonderful. I agree. I think the locations are I think they're really what I like is not just the variety, which I appreciate, but also I appreciate how they are used. I think it's it's a great use of location, and a great sense of and also, right, the very famous use of the Iguazu Falls in Brazil as well. That's really breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking. And then it goes to a completely over the top level with the location in space, right? So where are we going to end this? How are we going to top this? We have a little bit in space as well. I guess we also have a little bit in the Soviet Union. But it's obviously a set, right? But it's what is it, with General Gogol on the telephone there, right? He's got nothing. He's been up, right, because he has nothing but problems, right? And right. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but when we have that little clip with General Gogol, am I mistaken in remembering that there's a little shot of the window and it's supposed to be snowing outside? I don't know. And what are the other great things, that we have to show? This little scene is in the Soviet Union. Oh yes, he's got the great red pajamas on, right? So of course he does. Of course, if he's going to wear pajamas, of course they're going to be red. Of course, right? But anyway, and yes, so to get back to your great question, Vaughn, I think it actually works to the film's advantage. But let's see what other people have to say if they haven't already. So thank you very much for the great question. Let's see. Cooper Glover, the set where Bond almost gets strangled by a snake. Ken Adams said he wanted to make a little fake looking and not like real rocks. I can't remember the reason. Yeah, I think also this is, I think, it may be inherent in the earlier question by Vaughn, which is the wealth, sheer number and volume and variety of the sets as well. Like Ken Adams, so many. If you look at all the sets, I mean, this set that Cooper Glover is referring to, it's only on screen for maybe a few minutes, and then it goes to another set, which is this. What did Ken Adams say? This is my homage to, this is my Mondrian set. Which is the control room in the base for Drax and his men and women before they are preparing to launch into space with the Moonraker shuttles. And it's got this weird design, which is great. But and you see it for a little bit, and it's gone the next. And then you have the little meeting room below the Moonraker shuttle launch itself, which is right. Because Mr. Bond must be cold after his swim, so he must be taken to a place where he may be assured of warmth, right? To borrow some words from Drax himself. But here we have a wonderful sense of the use of different spaces, and we would have seen a set like this utilized more. But it's there and it's gone. And then the same is true for a lot of the other sets that we see. And then the great space station set at the end. So here too we have so much volume and setup that I think we see and then we never see again. Maybe with the exception of the use of the space station sets at the end, because it is extended in terms of the climax and the fight between Colonel Scott's men and Drax's little mini army and the like. And so that might be the exception. But for the most part, we see a variety of sets that are used and then not used again. But when they are used, I think they're used very well. And as Kubrick Glover seems to suggest, there is a sense of variety in the way that the sets are used. So there's a constant feeling of freshness, I think, that is on screen every time we see this, which is, I think, essential for the propulsion of the movement, the momentum of the film. And it works so well. And I would say that I don't think the sets are there for the sake of it being there and then they're thrown away, but there's always a meaning behind them. That whole control room set, I think, is to suggest that this is a huge operation by Drax and his crew. And we have the whole thing with the pet python, right? Because and he had to call off the fight with the pet python because, as he says, he discovered he had a crush on me, which is a great line, by the way. Incidentally, before I go, a lot of people say, "Oh, this is a funny kind of campy film," and the like. And I love this film to bits, I really do. But I too acknowledge the campy moments, and I always laugh out loud at this moment what Kubrick Glover 72 is referring to in the pit with the python, and he does the thing with the pen, which I think is actually Holly Goodhead's CIA poison-tipped pen, if I'm not mistaken. So what does that mean? Because he wasn't given that pen by Q, right? It was Holly Goodhead's pen. So if that's the case, he stole Holly Goodhead's pen, or maybe he just took it by accident. I don't know. When they met in Venice, and he's doing that whole thing with the basically he's just going through the inventory of the CIA gadgets, right? So there's the poison tipped pen with the little thing that shoots out, and there is the daily diary, fairly deadly diary, right, with the same darts. So apparently the CIA and the British Secret Service were already on par, as it were, in terms of the dart gun, the dart gun arms race, as it were. And then we have the whole thing with the flamethrower, perfume, and then the purse that is also radio telecommunication equipment or something like that. But so apparently he took the pen and he really puts it in there into the snake. And so really, essentially, it's another great example in the Bond universe of where the pen is mightier than the sword. But that's a great moment too in terms of a campiness, because after he comes out, when he comes out, there's a beautiful way that the John Barry score comes in. And he comes out and you see a close-up of Roger Moore's Bond. And he's on the rock surface, and then he just stops, and we cut to a shot of feet. And the John Barry score goes. It has that wonderful way of using chords. The minor key. And the chromatic minor key use that John Barry does so well, and it just slowly goes up, and we see Drax, and his hands go like that. Wow, that's so great. and has a little added pièce de résistance at the end, where he picks Bond up, and Bond just does he just tries to get one little punch in, but it doesn't do anything. That foot shot, by the way, reminds me of another beautiful John Barry musical cue that's used for the shot of feet for villain henchmen in a film called Diamonds Are Forever. Right? If at first you don't succeed, right? So it's Mr. Winton, Mr. Kidd, and try again. So that moment in that film, which we'll talk about hopefully in a future live stream. But the point I wanted to originally raise before I get back to the live chat is that shot, that scene in after the pet python duel. And Bond is out, and he says, why did you call off the fight with my pet python? You're not a sportsman, Mr. Bond. And James Bond said, I discovered he had a crush on me. So at this moment, Drax has already emerged. But if you remember, at this moment, Drax is flanked on both sides by two guards. And this is the first time that we see the yellow jumpsuits. And to top it off, it's not just the yellow jumpsuits, but it's these two guards that are maybe, I don't know if they're the tallest people in the world. I mean, what am I saying? I'm certainly very short in my own physical height, but I would probably make if I were a Drax guard, I think I would be a very funny looking guard indeed. So who am I to say? But it's a film, right? So, but you have these two guards flanked on either side there, and they're wearing the really funny yellow jumpsuits. So it's the first time we're seeing this yellow jumpsuit. It's like, why are these people wearing yellow jumpsuits like this? And they have they're holding their rifles, which I think they're machine guns, I think. And they're holding them like this. I love how I think they're holding them like this. They're not aiming them at Bond, but they're holding them like this. So it sort of goes against the whole notion of their guard duties, right? If you think about it, we have one of the enemies of Drax right there. You'd think that they'd have their guns on, but okay, maybe it's a safety issue. So maybe Drax is really into safety, right? Because if you have a really dangerous gun like that, you want to point it up rather than point it at people, because it's not just Bond. There's Drax. There's Jaws. There's also the Drax astronaut trainees, the women who are in the background there. So maybe that was due to safety issues. But anyway, they're holding their guns like this. And they have these great, kind of odd-looking sort of pillow helmets, I think, or they're pillows, I'm not sure. But they've got the great pillows on their head, which are also yellow and puffy. So they've got the puffy yellow things on their faces there, which is, you see Drax, and then suddenly you see these two guys with yellow puffy things on their head standing next to him. So I always thought that was a funny moment. Really, really funny. And also another funny moment too, and this is a little bit later in the film, where Bond and Dr. Goodhead, Holly Goodhead, are already in the space shuttle, and they're in the piloting. And they're on the way to the space station. But before then, Bond turns on the monitor to see what cargo they're holding, and we realize that it's the Noah's Ark twisted plan of Drax to have the carefully selected men and women, the beautiful men and women, to restart the human race in his eyes. It's a very twisted plot, but right. So you have these beautiful men and women who we have seen the implication of them being selected by Drax all the way throughout the film, and then we see them together with the men. We haven't seen the men selected. We've basically been focusing on the women throughout the film. And then we see all the men and women sitting, and we see one, and it's beautiful, like chorus. John Barry's singing like ah, and we have a close up in slow motion and the hair flying, and one of the women goes in for a kiss with one of the men. It's kind of weird and twisted and beautiful, right? But if you look closely, they are sitting in rows, and in the very back. The back row, from our vantage point, it would be the last row on the right-hand side from our vantage point. We have the young woman and the young man sitting there. And you see all the other couples, and they're maybe holding hands or maybe silently flirting with their eyes. But that couple at the end, that young woman with the very short haircut, it seems like she's just looking straight ahead. She's like, I have nothing to do with this guy sitting next to me. I'm just going to do my job and that's it. But I'm not interested at all. So that's so funny. Everyone else is so almost amorous, except that last couple at the end. In particular, this young woman with the short haircut at the end. It's really great. Incidentally, it's the same woman who, during the whole fight with the python, she has this lovely smile on her face, but suddenly she's so mean looking when it cuts to all the shots of the women looking as Bond is struggling with the python. Everyone's like, having an evil glee on their face, like, ha ha ha. Except her, she's like, and then it's the same woman who's in the back there, by the way. But anyway, check it out. I think it's really great. But anyway, going back to this, let's see. Here we go. Andrew Plant Gollum says, I just picked up the Bond 24 film Blu-ray box set. So well done. I hope you enjoy it, my friend. Cooper Glover says, I didn't like parts of the gondola scene when the gondola is going down the streets of Venice. Let's see. I'll get to that in a moment. Wolfgrat says, I pretty much in favor of not concentrating too much on the plot, Vaughn. So I like changes in scenery in the background. So that's addressing Vaughn's earlier point, and Wolfgrat picks it up about. That's a good point. It's maybe less to do with specific plot points, but more to do with going from point to point to point. Although I do think that it does, I think, a fairly good job. To the extent it's able to explain why it is they have to go to Rio, or to explain what's the whole deal with Venice. I mean, it's this whole thing about the trail that Bond has to follow. And what is the trail? So he first goes to Drax residence, and he gets to see the pictures, takes the pictures of the blueprints in the safe in the Drax residence, and he gets access to the safe with Corrine's help. Of course, it leads to her very grim demise, which I'll get to also in a moment. But right, so the trail of evidence starts with Drax visiting Drax, infiltrating the private quarters of Drax's residence, getting the access to the blueprints, taking pictures with the great 007 little thing there. Another thing too, if you're a secret agent, why have your secret code on a little thing for everyone to see? But anyway, so he's taking pictures there. It's really great, and then that leads to the glass. And this interesting shaped glass, which leads him to the glass making facilities in Venice, and that leads him to investigating that, which leads him to understand that there's some globe process with some poison liquid that's involved. And then we realize in his fight with Cha that the globes are in these cases that seem to be addressed to Rio de Janeiro. And also, so we realize that, and also a meeting with Holly Goodhead, and we realize that she's on her way as well, so they will meet again in Rio. But that's the next point, Rio. And then the investigation as to the orchid itself. What's the secret of the orchid? And then that leads to the falls, and then the jungle, and then back to Drax's lair, and then from there we go to outer space. So I actually think there's a nice trail of the breadcrumb, the spy breadcrumb trail. I think is well enough established to at least give a sense. I mean, it's not the greatest mystery spy trail in the world I've ever seen, of course, but it's still, I think, well established enough anyway for us to understand just why he needs to get from point A to point B to point C to point D to point E. But still, it's also an excuse, right? This is really just set up for Bond to go from place to place to place. I get this. So it's not just Bond too; it's M and also Q and also Minister of Defense, right? So it's they're also on in these various places as well. So and also yes, speaking of M, we shouldn't forget also Bernard Lee here as M. What a great great character he was able to develop, and it's of course we won't see him again. This will be his final outing as M in the James Bond films, but I'm glad that we saw him in the way that we did. We got a little bit more of M appearances here than we usually do in other films, so that I thought that was very nice. And if you watch one of the documentaries, you'll have a great anecdote about him from Desmond Llewellyn, and about playing the piano. It's a really nice story, but yeah, and he's still there at the end with Bond, right? 007, right? My God, what's Bond doing, right? It's a great way of ending the film, by the way. But yes, so tribute to M, of course. Bradley is M. But anyway, thank you. Let's see here. Halifax says, this is one Bond film I have not seen, so forgive me. Does Criterion have a Bond box set? No, Criterion doesn't have a Bond box set, but Criterion did in the past release a number of Bond films on Laserdisc, very famous Laserdiscs, in fact. So let's see. Wolfgrat says, well, apart from the gondola, yes. I'll be honest, Ryan, I hated the gondola and the pigeon. Sorry, pigeon lovers. Oh, gosh, yes. So that's okay. I wouldn't say I love pigeons, but I think that scene is great. You know, it's this whole thing. The whole Venice sequence is actually really odd. It's oddly constructed. It's because it's oddly constructed. First of all, you've got the whole relationship with the gondola boatsman. What's his name? Franco, and he's. I don't know if he works for Bond or if he's just a gondola. I mean, it's a specially constructed gondola, so I'm assuming that he's also part of the British Secret Service, or maybe he has a professional relationship with the British Secret Service or something of that nature. So, but he's of course steering the gondola, but he unfortunately gets it with the knife thrower. And you've got this weird construct of people who are trying to be clandestinely attacking, pursuing, and killing Bond, but they're doing it in very over-the-top ways. So you have this whole thing with the setup of the funeral boat that turns into a knife thrower thing, but then that goes awry, and there's a little thing where they go under the bridge, and the bridge is too low, so the casket falls, or right, it falls in there, which is, I think, a little bit of a nice callback to Live and Let Die, in fact, with the double-decker bus and the bridge. But that's an interesting thing. Although you'd have to wonder if this was actually meant to be a sort of in disguise type of way to try to assassinate Bond, then the whole ruse or the whole disguise was faulty from the get-go. Because regardless of whether Bond was there or not, their boat was too high. So even if they're trying to traverse the canals without Bond, they're just regularly pretending to be a funeral process or whatever. Their boat was certainly too high, so the casket would have fallen into the waters with or without Bond there. So I don't understand what the whole point of that was. I mean, that was a really poorly constructed plan on the part of those guys. Maybe, again, I've never been to Venice, so maybe the bridge heights are a little bit higher depending on where you go. So maybe that has accounted. Maybe they turned into one of the canal places by accident. But anyway, so that's a little bit of an oddity from my point of view. The other oddity is the fight with Cha. I love Cha. I think he's a great villain henchman, and I love how Cha is so into it. He is, I mean, if he has to do something, he will just go at it 1,000%. And just his I think his sound, his screeching, that was a really big jump scare for me. You remember when Bond has escaped, or not escaped, but he has left the lab after he sees how those two poor guys were basically poisoned to death due to Bond's essentially due to Bond, really. So and so Bond leaves, and then it's quiet and dark, and all of a sudden Shaw's like, So that's great. That's so great in the middle of Venice. That's fantastic. Talk about sticking out like a sore thumb. I mean, I suppose it's nighttime and everything, but if you're there wearing this gi, and right, all this stuff, it's pretty, you could stand out pretty much. And then goes into the glass museum, which is a great little thing. Again, the use of sound and silence, which I think is a wonderful touch. It recalls From Russia with Love and the use of sound effects in the fight scene between Grant and Bond, which is great. There are a lot of great things about this film. From Russia with Love, that, as I mentioned before, that also has a little bit in Venice as well. So Venice there, Venice here. There's also some boat chases later in the film with some explosions of boats. That is very much in terms of the visual setup of some of the shots, reminds me a lot of the similar types of boat chase scenes and firework in the film From Russia with Love. So I would say there are a lot of links between this film and From Russia with Love. But going back to the whole fight between Shaw and Bond here, and the glass and the sounds and everything, that's really great. But it's so oddly constructed because it's meant to be dark and silent. But then suddenly they're fighting, and we realize that they're in the vicinity of this quite loud outdoor restaurant with its own little mini opera performance. So there's a lot of sounds going on already, but it's also quiet at the same time. So that's a weird kind of contradiction in my head. Also, when they're fighting, they're going into that little the clock tower there. It's obviously leveled, so they're on one level, they go up another level, and they go up to another level, which is meant to be the clock interworkings. But that doesn't make sense if we go to the outside, because there's actually an arch. There's an arch that is underneath this. There's an empty space, and then there's an arch, and above that there's a clock. And then here we have the restaurant and the opera singer guy with the great mustache, by the way. But then and then Chaw's thrown through the glass, and play it again, Sam, right, in a very unglorious, undignified way to die, with the legs hanging out there. So my point is, it's all really oddly constructed, very much so. But I think it works really. And also Franco, right? He says, "Oh, I'll meet you later. Oh, si, senor." And then he's suddenly there again when after Bond has met Holly Goodhead. So that's so. These are weird, quirky touches, but I love it. I absolutely love it, and I think it adds to the whole flair of it. And so with that, to top it all off, in the sequence of Venice, which is, I think, very quirkily constructed, we have the ultimate pièce de résistance of quirkiness, which is the way in which Bond escapes from his Venice Canal boat chase. Now, we've already seen so many boat chases with Roger Moore's Bond in the past. Live and Let Die, The Man with the Golden Gun. And so we have two of them, in fact, because we're going to get another one in maybe 20, 30 minutes from now. But wow, what an interesting boat chase in and of itself. And to top it all off, it does have this progression, if you will. If you think of Live and Let Die, that has a very suspense-driven feel to it that really builds very well. Man with the Golden Gun has a similar type of vibe, although there is the comic element that's added into it. We've had the comic element, I suppose, with Pepper in the first film, but then it's really upped in terms of its comic quotient level in The Man with the Golden Gun. Now in Moonraker, if we think of a progression of the comic oddity of this, the comic oddity element of the boat chase, now Moonraker is really upped to, up to 11, right? So it's only natural then. How is he going to escape? Of course he's got to escape in the most ludicrous way imaginable, which is this huge thing, right? Again, it goes to the whole notion of James Bond not as a clandestine behind-the-scenes spy. No, he has to do things out in the open because this is James Bond, not James Bond the spy, but James Bond the superhero. So of course he's going to escape this way. And with that feeling, I love this escape. I think it's great. And the guys who are chasing him, they were so frustrated that the driver, he drives away and the guy falls and he's like, oh, wait, right? And he doesn't even bother to stop. So what happened between them? I don't know what happened between them, but anyway, maybe he just innocently didn't notice his colleague fell into the water, or maybe he did, and maybe they had a fight or something. I don't know, but anyway, the way that Roger Moore's Bond escapes, I think it's so Roger Moore Bond, and it's like, and he's having, I'm just driving. It's nice. I mean, it's very much akin also to something like Pierce Brosnan's Bond, the tank chase. I mean, he's driving a tank. right through the city, and like, people aren't gonna. Of course, people are gonna notice, but he's there, and he's, I'm gonna straighten my tie. It has that similar type of vibe as well. And these moments do happen in Bond universe. And so, I mean, sometimes they're just too over the top. They just they strain the suspension of disbelief too much, so we can't go along with it. And I understand this is true for some people. And then the pigeon thing might be a bit too much. But, right, we've seen birds as well used we'll see birds a lot more in the John Glenn years, of course, but we've seen birds used to some degree anyway in these films. But this is certainly the most interesting one, I suppose, or interesting in air quotes, perhaps. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. That's the Venice sequence, at least as far as I can see. But again, I understand if people don't like the Venice sequence and how it pans out. Totally get it. I totally get it. Let's see. All right, just scrolling down here. Robert is here. Hello, you say. Oh, Andrew says, I'm sorry. Andrew says, Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker are my favorite Bond films. I love Jaws. Yes, I'll get to that in a moment. Robert here, my favorite Bond film. Well done. Thank you. Yes. Cooper Glover 1972 says, I think it sounds like Drax sounds like he's about to break up into laughter when he's about to put Bond into space. Yes, there's a little bit of moment where Lonsdale is, it's the line where you have the tedious inevitability of an unloved season, right? And he said, when he says the word inevitability, he says, you have the tedious inevitability. He almost breaks out into laughter in that moment, which is odd because Drax has never been prone to any kind of outward shows of laughter before. So this is an interesting thing. Although I suppose this is at the very end of the film, so he does show more anger and more outward displays of emotion, I suppose. But still, yeah, maybe that's the moment we're referring to. Anyway, just going on here. Henry Kish is here. Hello. Yes, Wolfgat says, I think in response, well, he keeps coming up with amusing ways to kill Bond. Bless him. Yes. So let me get to that now, which is Drax. The villain Drax. I love Drax. I think there was mention earlier in the live chat about James Mason. Yes, that could have been the case, but it ended up being the great Michael Lonsdale as Drax. And my goodness, I love this performance. Now, there is a line at the very beginning of the film where after Drax and Bond have met in the Drax residence, Drax says to his very villainous henchman, Chai, he says, it's a very famous line, look after Mr. Bond, see that some harm comes to him. That line is so significant for a number of reasons, in my view. First of all, it's a great line. It's a great villainous line. Right, we have to remember Christopher Wood is very clever with a lot of the dialogue here. But that is also very important, in my view, because it is the perfect dialogue-based setup for Drax and the type of villain he is. He is a villain that likes to... He likes to think that he is too clever by half. That's the expression. In other words, I think I'd like to think that maybe in his head when he said that line, he probably was thinking, oh, that's a really good line. I think that's really clever, that sort of thing. Because it's a very clever line, but it's said by a man who, in my head, in my mind, would only the only kind of person who would say that would be someone who is so into himself. And so he wants to be so clever. And so that means that's also his weakness too, right? Because what that means and what Wolfratz is hinting at is that he can only take care of Bond in these over-the-top, overly developed ways. He can't simply just say, oh, that's it. No, he has to do this in the over-the-top way that is quite remarkable. And so and then he leaves it to his henchmen too. He says, he doesn't even think of it himself. He entrusts the duty of actually thinking of the plot to his henchmen. And his henchmen have a similar type of plans. So this is all to say that right, the over elaborate ways to try to kill Bond, I think, are really set up implicitly and explicitly in that one line of dialogue from Drax at the beginning. So once we hear that, we realize, oh, okay, this is the type of villain he is. And so that helps to explain all the reasons why they don't kill him like the straightforward manner, but rather they just try to do this in the overly over the top elaborate ways with the gravity simulator, and instead of killing Bond in the car, right? He could have killed him in the car. No, 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 no. Let me wait until Bond is here in this field where we're hunting, and I'll have a guy hide in the trees and shoot Bond. He's standing right next to me. I have all these henchmen with me. We could just attack him now, grab him. I could just shoot him, right? No, 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 that's not what I'll do. This is someone I really hate. So what I'll do is I will just wait until he's here. I have a gun, but I won't shoot him. I'll have someone else hide in the trees and then shoot him. And then Bond, he's the luckiest son of a gun in the world, right? He's just shooting and boom, right? Or maybe he knew, maybe he saw it in the corner of his eye. Someone was not doing what it is he should have been doing. And so maybe he knew that when to shoot when he did. You missed, Mr. Bond, right? Did I? Right, as you said, just such good sport, right? And he drives off, but he drives off in Drax's car, right? So Drax's car, right? They could have done something with it. I don't know, but anyway. So that's all to say that it's and then what follows after that is the really chilling demise of quite a lovely character, right? Corinne Dufour with the dogs, right? And that's a very, very scary sequence, in fact. And so, and I'll try to get to that moment later too, but in the context of what I'm saying now, this is to say that Drax had so many opportunities to off Bond in a very quick and efficient manner, but oh no, he has to do it in a very overly elaborate way. And that's also true of his henchmen. And then we have Cha, and then we have Jaws, and that is another story in and of itself. So, but before we get to Jaws, let's finish with Drax. But that is one of the great charms of Drax, right? He is just so effortlessly indirect when it comes to his passive aggressiveness and Bond. And so, but I wouldn't even call it passive aggressiveness. I would just call it just the vice of trying to be too clever by half. And then that's his ultimate downfall, because if he were more efficient, then Bond would have been out of the picture much earlier. But we also have to remember that had Drax not made such a violent overture towards Bond at the very beginning when Bond visited the Drax residence and the whole gravity simulator, then that would have meant that Bond would have not been put on the scent of Drax and pursuing Drax the way he did. But the fact that Drax kind of attacked him meant that Bond was on the hunt, or on the trail, as it were. So Drax actually, if you think about it, he really should have gone the Goldfinger route, which is to say he should have had Bond either apprehended and just make sure that nothing was going on, the whole thing of showing, or he should have just not attacked Bond at all, because had he not attacked Bond, it would have meant that Bond would have been thrown off the scent completely, but he didn't. And so that's a little bit of, I think, a weakness of Drax, perhaps. And let's see. But of course, the weakness turns into sort of a megalomaniacal type of villainy at the very end. And that's, I think, one of the great strengths of the film and of Drax's plot. It's a very simple plot. There are no political allegiances that he seems to express. He's not necessarily executing his plot in the context of the Cold War. He is just a guy who is super rich and super out of his mind. And he has the means to be able to carry out his just absolutely outlandish plot to destroy the world as we know it. The human race, as you know it, will cease to exist, right? So it's just it's just global, and in terms of it's global, and it's also non-Cold War simplified in a way, and that's also helping to make it more understandable. And it also is a great continuation of the Lewis Gilbert directed films. You Only Live Twice, Spy Who Loved Me, and now Moonraker. It has this global aspect that becomes less and less about the Cold War and more about one megalomaniacal villain trying to take over or destroy the world or something. And Drax is one of them. And then I love the whole thing with Drax at the end. He's thought of all these ways to try to kill Bond, but then at the very end, he's got a laser gun on Bond. And so in the end, he had the last chance to shoot Bond in the one way that he should have done in the very beginning, which is just take it and but but here's his last chance right at the space station. And what does he do? Instead of just offing Bond, he talks too much, right? And he says, at least I shall have the pleasure of putting you out of my misery, right? He says that one line. That right there is already too much. He should have just offed Bond right there, but he had to say that one line. But that wasn't it. He had to go even further with his dialogue. Just desolated Mr. Bond. He just had to say that bit, and that was enough time for Bond to flick his wrist and throw the dart there. Heartbroken Mr. Drax, allow me, take a giant step for mankind. And then he's got that great sequence with him flying out there. And I love the shot of Lonsdale flying out there, and he's got that weird pose with his body, right? And then that great scream. I can't quite do the impersonation, or maybe I can try. The great scream of Drax when he's flown out into the outer space. He's going, and then you see a shot of Drax's body flipping out into space. So, right, and I think Lewis Gilbert or someone on one of the commentary tracks says, he might still be out there, in fact, or William Cartridge or something. He might still be out there, maybe. So you can do a sequel with Drax in space. I don't know. That might be an interesting idea, Drax in space. Incidentally, also, I love the moment when the space station, the gravity becomes zero. When Bond pushes the button and everything goes out of whack and it becomes slow motion, and we see Drax walking through in zero gravity, and all his, like, there's one woman who's on the wall and she's got this weird pose. It's like it's like, and you could tell in her body language, it's like, help me. Yet what does Drax do? He doesn't give. He doesn't care at all. He just cares about himself. He's not going to help anyone. He just goes out and just escapes. So it's wonderful. But anyway, that's Drax for you. And I think it's a great villain. Absolutely great villain. Certainly not a physical villain, but he is a very it's a cerebral villainy that's meant to be the expression of wealth and super wealth. And it's just going just absolutely just a full forced ferocity, but it's also very low key, and it's all about dialogue and posture and the like. And Lonsdale too. I mean, he's a great actor, absolutely great actor. If you see him in other performances, he can go out and he can really go for it, and he can be very physical. If you want a great performance by Lonsdale, you check out Out One, which is really great. Let's see. Yes. Okay. Let's see here. J Davis 234 is here. Hello. Best Bond film is probably one you first watch at 13. Yes. Timothy says, I'd often wondered if Drax is really playing the piano when Bond meets. That's a good question. It is one take. And of course, you can do things in terms of filmmaking and sounds and people pushing on the keys and things. So I'm not a pianist, so I can't tell. But it looks like he's able to play it. So let's see. Yeah, Wolfgrat says, by the way, what happened to the airplane girl in the secondary opening? Yes, that's very cool. There's something about what happens to people on airplanes in Bond films. There's a similar thing that happens with a henchman that's seen in an airplane sequence in the film Goldfinger. You see someone there, and then suddenly something happens, and you don't quite know what happens. So that's the similar thing that happens, I think, with the airplane, with the woman who is seen in the airplane at the beginning. Let's see. Alan is here. Hello. It's nice to see you. Rico is here. Hello. Cooper Glover says, yeah, the parachute scene, they had to go up shooting the scene numerous times, maybe literally a little less than 100 times, and the camera could have broken the necks of the cameraman. Yeah, the camera could have broken the necks. I think in order to avoid that, what they had to do, they had to find a special lens because in order to be able to photograph that, because otherwise, with a very light weight, otherwise, as you say, if they had used a more standard lens for the camera, the weight of that would have been too much for the parachuting artists. So yes. So they were able to find the lens. It's a story that's recounted by Michael Wilson in the documentary very nicely. He just found it by accident, which is really a great fortune indeed. Let's see, Tomahawk 238, hello. Nowadays, let's see, I love Moonraker, not ashamed to admit. A more faithful adaptation of the book would be interesting. Yes, great. And and I would encourage you also, you don't have to say, not ashamed to admit. Don't worry, you just say, I love Moonraker. And I think that's it. That's great. I love Moonraker. And it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And you're absolutely right, too. I think a faithful adaptation of the book would be very interesting. Although we do see bits of pieces here and there, we actually see a little bit of the Moonraker plot in Die Another Day, of all places. So that's an interesting way that plot is used. We also see a little bit of the plot of Moonraker in the film Octopussy. But I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. But anyway, I agree. I absolutely agree. Let's see, Wolfgrat says, it's a kid's film, man, and on that basis I can live with it. Yeah. Oh, Mainly Movies is here. Hello, it's nice to see you. Mike Eli says, my favorite bit of line dialogue is, do you know him? Which is Holly Goodhead on the cable car, right? And then Bond says, not socially. His name's Jaws. He kills people. Yeah, I love that too. So let's talk about Jaws. That's a great place as any to talk about Jaws. I love the Jaws character. I think I join a lot of people who also loved the Jaws character. When we first saw him in The Spy Who Loved Me, we said, what the heck is this? Who is this guy? The whole teeth, and he becomes, there are so many iconic villains. Right? I think for a lot of people, it's Jaws and Odd Job when it comes to the iconic villain henchmen. And for good reason, because these are the iconic henchmen. And I think for my generation, I think for me, it's Jaws. Jaws and Bond. That's the big matchup. And we see Jaws, therefore, in The Spy Who Loved Me, and then Moonraker. That's it, of course. We don't see him ever again, but that's what we get. So Jaws is what he is. He is all muscle. But we realize, too, which is a very interesting development of the Jaws character in this film. We realize, too, that he is not just all muscle. He is also a thinking man, and he is a man who is able to feel emotion and also to think for himself, and independently, even when it means, consequently, having to go against his employer, who happens to be a villain who is bent on destroying the world. Okay, so that's Jaws in this film. Now, he becomes maybe cartoonishly buffoonish in this film in terms of his indestructibility. Okay, I get that. But this level of indestructibility has already been established in the earlier film, The Spy Who Loved Me. So it's nothing that is inconsistent. Also, his cartoonish, buffoonish indestructibility is, I would say, too, consistent with the superhero mode of James Bond that we find in this, and also arguably in The Spy Who Loved Me before it. So if James Bond is a superhero, then it just stands to reason that the villains that he has to face are also types of maybe cartoon supervillains. Okay, and if that's the case, then I think it works very nicely in this portrait of James Bond that we have in Moonraker. So with that, I think the sky's the limit. And indeed, the sky is the limit from the very outset. And we see Bond and Jaws fighting in midair in what has to be one of the great pre-title sequences ever, in my view. Who would have thunk it, right? To have a fight in midair with Bond without a parachute. My goodness. I mean, Cooper Glover in 1972 alluded to this earlier, but this is a really great sequence. And Jaws, he just comes up out of nowhere, and there he is. My goodness, this is so cool. And it sets up the Bond-Jaws dynamic perfectly. And I mean, Jaws becomes kind of like he kind of becomes Dr. Moriarty. He becomes, he's Moriarty. To Sherlock Holmes in a way. And he, I think, in many ways usurps or takes over the Blofeld role. Blofeld is often deemed to be the arch nemesis of Bond. I actually think that Jaws, although he is a sub-villain henchman status, I get it. I think Jaws has equal claim to the title of most iconic James Bond villain, and I think he actually rivals Blofeld. In my mind, he actually eclipses Blofeld. But my point here is that Jaws and Bond, from the outset, they are enemies, and we see they are enemies, as I say, to the very heights of the world, right? In the sky and beyond, because they will also be fighting in space too, I think, for the most part, but then they'll turn into allies. But here in this opening, we have this beautifully constructed, super over-the-top fight sequence in midair, right, which is amazing. And then what I love then is Jaws is not, how should I put it? He's not scared, right? He could have pushed Bond out and he could, okay, my job's done. I've taken care of Bond. Now I'm going to close the door and I'm just going to relax on the plane and I'm going to have a good time. No. He is really into it. He's smiling, and he's actually putting his life on the line when he flies out there, right? So this is to say, Jaws, I think, is a really dynamic villain, and he goes at it really well. And I love the whole, I mean, I know it's not right, but I love the whole body language of Jaws flying in the air with the whole thing. He looks like a vulture, and you get close up of his face, and he's just smiling, like he's having a great time, And he just got a little bit too overzealous there with the whole pulling the thing. Then he just, right, and I just love the whole thing. He's trying to fly and do all this stuff, and it's almost very, very charming in a way. And he flies into the circus tent there, and therein begins the whole wonderful the opening title sequence and the line. And then we see Jaws later again. He is, of course, referred to as, if you can get him, of course, right? So he's very famous in the henchman job market, I suppose. And I suppose he can fetch a pretty penny, but if anyone can afford it, Drax certainly can. And then we see Jaws at work, right, immediately in Rio with the whole cable car thing, and what is he doing? He's smiling. He's smiling a lot. He's just smiling when he sees Bond there, and Mike Eli's great dialogue there. Do you know him? Not socially. His name's Jaws. He kills people, and then he's got another henchman there, the bald henchman, who's very much it reminds me of what's his name, Chandor in The Spy Who Loved Me. Right? So maybe Jaws has this inside affinity for henchmen who are kind of bald men. I don't know. And so anyway, but you see that guy in the control room, they're pushing the button, and then when the cable car is just out of control, you see the guy, I love how he uses, I've got to get out of here. And so that's great, and it crashes through, and poor 7-Eleven, not 7-Eleven, poor 7-Up, and all that, just 7-Up just crumbles and all this stuff. But anyway, Jaws is alive, but he's happy, but he's stuck, right? He's stuck. But then who's there, right? Dolly, right? The great love of his life, and this begins one of the, I would say, one of the, you either are with it or you aren't, and but this begins one of the weirdest, oddest, and also most charming turns of any James Bond film, which is the arc, the love story here, the Jaws love story. And what's great about it too is that it is not inconsequential to the plot. It is actually very consequential to the plot because it really goes, flies in the face of this whole notion of the perfect human specimen that Drax is so villainously and nefariously and arrogantly trying to push in terms of his plan. I mean, it's a very arrogant view of humanity. And we have, on the contrary, we have these two lovers, right? The Jaws love storyline that flies in the face of that, right? And it seems to be like a throwaway comic thing, and maybe it is, but it's used in a way that is very much consistent with the villain line, and it's used by Bond perfectly, sowing the seeds of doubt, in the words of Michael G. Wilson in the commentary or in the documentary, in order to make Jaws think on his own, to make him think enough to want to betray his boss. And that's what happens, and that's what he does. And it's all due to this love story, which is great. And so that makes Jaws a thinking person. He's able to think, and he's able to realize that what I'm doing is not in my best interest. And then that's enough for him to turn, which is a great moment. And when I was a kid, and now when Jaws does that thing with the two guards and he rams them together like that, I was cheering. That was such a great moment. Yes, right? It's that great moment too when you have, I don't know if anyone knows, if you are fans of pro wrestling, but professional wrestling has a similar type of, or almost exactly same type of feel, when a bad wrestler character becomes a baddie becomes a goodie, when a heel becomes a face. That's the same moment, and you cheer and say, "Oh, it's so great! Jaws has become a goodie. That's great." And what makes Jaws' character even more fascinating is at the very end, after the space station has basically been destroyed, and it's trashed, right? Bond and Holly Goodhead have the plan to go into, what was it, Moonraker, the Moonraker shuttle equipped with the laser, but they can't disengage from the space dock because they're stuck. And what do we see? We see Jaws there in the space station. Is he trying to escape? Is he trying to find a way out? No. All he's doing is he's trying to find his lost love, Dolly. That's all he's doing. And when Dolly and he find each other, and they have that slow motion run. I mean, it's in slow motion, and it's like, oh, this is so cheesy and corny, right? Why am I seeing this? But it's wholly consistent. We have seen slow motion effects in the sequence before, right? So it's just really interesting because slow motion was used in Moonraker as a means of expressing zero gravity in space, so slow motion, right? So they're flying around, right? And then when the space station gets into zero gravity, all of them are flying around. And like here, we have the slow motion used, but they're running together, and then they embrace, and it becomes this hugely poetic thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm a sucker for that sort of thing, perhaps, but I thought that was great. That was so great. And they find the champagne, and we hear Jaws speak, "Well, here's to us," right? And that line is also very loaded with meaning because the two of them, are resigned to their fate, right? They have no means of escaping, right? They don't know that the space station will be decomposed in a way that will still allow them to survive. They don't know that at that moment. All they can, I'm assuming that they know, is that they're not escaping, so they are resigned to die. The two of them are. So, and what do? They're happy, they're smiling, and they're so carefree, and they know that they're about to die. I think that's really quite poignant and moving. And I love the way that Jaws, when he sees Bond in the window there, he's like, oh, he's just like nothing, like, oh, like, and I love the way he waves his hand. It's not like, it's like, like that. That's what you do. That's like a kid after he has, like, he's found like the greatest thing in the world. He's just so happy and he's just waving, like, that's the same kind of feeling, And then he's like, can you? We're stuck here. Can you help us? And he's like, And he says that wonderful thing with the disengaging whatever it is, the pipe or whatever. And that's it. That's the last we see of Jaws. But that's great. I thought that was great. So, and I know how people, Jaws, the whole thing there, it just goes, it's off the rails. I don't think it goes off the rails at all. And I think it's used in it's a kid-friendly way, but it's also consistent with the plot. The plot in and of itself is not a nuanced, dark, Cold War plot. So it's very much composed of components that are easy to follow. And thus this idea of the turn is also very very fascinating. We see a number of turns of character allegiances in Bond films, of films past, of course, but I think for me this is perhaps the greatest villain turn. Maybe this, and maybe maybe A View to a Kill as well. I think those two, I think, are my favorites. But wow, what a great way to end the Jaws arc, right? Because you don't want to see him killed off. You just want to see him happy, And of course, when he goes back, I'm sure he has a lot of crimes that he'll have to answer for, because he is basically a criminal. But well, just maybe he'll still be okay. I'm not sure. But anyway, there's that. And of course, there are still moments where Jaws and other parts of the film, I think, add this sense of the sinister and the creepy. And one involves Jaws, and I'll speak of these and I'll go to the live chat. But for the Jaws moment is in Rio, when he's got that clown costume on, he's walking down the alleyway there. Manuela is just there, and it's just this creepy moment. Really creepy. And you see him dancing, you see this huge clown thing and it's just dancing in the crowd, and then suddenly it stops and it just looks. It's like, what the heck is that? And oh my goodness, is that what I think it is? And in fact, Jaws, I don't think has ever been scarier than in that moment. That is, I think, the scariest moment, really. And then Manuela, it just looks so tiny in his hands, and you just so vulnerable, and he's about, and then suddenly, how does he get out of it? Of course, the dancing. And that moment where the camera holds on Jaws, and he's like, get out of the way, please, I have to do my job here. And then they're just, no, let's have fun, let's just do this, right? And so it's just and then there's that moment where Jaws is like, oh, all right, and he's just doing the thing with, and that's a really interesting turn. And it's very subtle, but I love that turn because, again, it's another foreshadowing, perhaps, of the type of turn that we will see later. And we realize that Jaws he's a guy who just likes to have fun. We see him smiling a lot, so this isn't inconsistent at all. But that's a very chilling moment, at least the first part of it is. Of course, the other chilling moment that I do want to mention, I don't want to forget, it has nothing to do with Jaws, directly anyway, but it's the death of Corinne. Corinne Dufour at the first part of the film, with the dogs and the chase through the woods. That is really scary, and that's also very sad and tragic, because I don't know about you, but I really got to, I thought she was a great character, and very helpful and very earnest, and very much an ally of Bond, and it would have been so nice to see her going forward. Of course, a lot of people, I think, hang on the line of the list things that she shouldn't do on a first date that was given to her by her mothers, and then she has that thing about what about that list of your mothers, and she says, I never learned to read. I think that's probably maybe that's probably not the best line in the world, and I think the filmmakers and the scriptwriters acknowledge this, at least in the commentary track. Of course, it can't be true. Of course, she must know how to read, right? She's a pilot. she's a helicopter pilot, so of course she does. I always look at that as just being a throwaway line, just to get on to business, as it were. But I loved that character, and I thought that was always such a question in my head, which is, what is her job with the Drax group, the Drax Corporation? She introduces herself at the very beginning as being, she is just a humble pilot in the service of the Drax Corporation. But we realize that perhaps she is something more. I don't know. Is she an executive secretary? Is she something more than an executive? I don't know. Right? She has her own room in the Drax estate. I don't know what that means. I don't know if many other people who works for Drax Corporation have their same room in the Drax estate. I don't know. I don't know what that means. Maybe this is their dormitory. I don't know. But in any event, she is there, and so. But she is offed quite early in a, as I say, very sad, tragic, and quite chilling way. So this is to say that this and the later Jaws moment are examples of where the film can get very scary. Very scary indeed. And also the moment with Cha, and he just goes out there and says, ah! That is one of the biggest jump scares I remember as a kid. Every time I would always know where that moment would come, but I would still be just on the edge. Just be, oh my God, I'd be going like this with my fingers in my ears, because it would help to mitigate the shock of the jump scare. But yeah, that's all right. So anyway, sorry about that. Let me go back to the live chat. Let's see here. Zyrother, hello. Oh, Zyrother, sorry, didn't realize it started this early. Yes, I think maybe there's a time difference. There's no time difference. There's no change of the hours for us in Japan, but I'm sure it happens elsewhere. So I apologize for that. But yeah, it started at 6 a.m. for me. The special effect, Kubrick lover. The special effects in space, they had to back the film up, the camera numerous times to get all the images in the same frame of film, having the great danger of the film getting ruined. Yes. So the point is that it had to all the shots were done with the camera. They weren't post-production after effects. So that meant that everything had to be shot in the camera, and different elements had to be shot using, the same bit of film, which meant that the same bit of film had to run through the mechanical machinery every time they wanted to shoot a different element of the same shot, which meant, of course, the more passes, what's referred to as passes, the more passes that the film takes through the camera, the more opportunity is left open for the possibility of damage to the film. And so that's what it would do. You're absolutely right, Kubrick lover, absolutely right. Let's see. Wolfgat says, by the way, isn't the speedboat music a straight rip from Russia with Love? I'm not complaining back. They went on about it, the other commentary. So are you referring to the second boat chase? And if so, the music that's used, excuse me while I take a drink here, the music that's used is, I think that it's called the 007 theme. I think it's the da 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 da, right? And we've seen this theme, or if you've heard this theme, excuse me, used in many John Barry score in the past. But I believe this will be the last time in the James Bond series that we will hear the 007 theme. We've heard it, yes, you're right, in From Russia with Love. This is when, I don't want to get too much into the plot details of that film, but it's used when when Bond and company are trying to get the Lector. And it's also used in Thunderball, so it's been used occasionally in John Barry scores, and then we see it again here. So in fact, it's very much a return to the old school James Bond music, which is, I think, really nice. I mean, it's a nice touch. It's much slowed down. It's a slower version of a rendition of it, but still I think it works because it's a heavier boat and the like, and so it's not really about speed as much as it is about the gadgets and Jaws and all this stuff and the falls. So, but it's a nice return. But as I say, it is the last time, if I remember correctly, that we will hear that 007 theme. Let's see. Let's see. All right. Zyrother says, first saw this a few years ago and despised it. I rewatched this time and I liked it more. Yes, I'm glad to hear that. Cooper Glover follows. Yeah, I liked it a little more last viewing, but I still think the film drags a little when the Drax mansion scenes happen. Zyrother continues. Pacing, I was okay on. The humor just comes off as really forced and terribly unfunny. J. Davis 234 agreed. Kind of dated, corny. And then Zyrother, but the incredible effects, music, and cinematography make up for it somewhat. And Jay Davis says effects were really good though. And then Kubrick Clever responds, I see the humor differently, I guess. Like, take a giant step for mankind, or where did you learn that? CIA, no, Vassar, right? So what does he say? Where'd you learn to fight like that? NASA? And she says, oh, no, Vassar, yeah. So, it's referring to Holly Goodhead. And of course, it has the great line at the end. I think it's probably the best Q line in the whole series, actually, right? When they have a satellite link up or hookup with the space between the space station, the base, Earth base, and the Moonraker shuttle at the very end, and they're able to have visual hookup, which will be patched into the White House and Buckingham Palace, right? So I like that, Buckingham Palace. So Minister Frederick Grazer, I think His Majesty would be quite fascinated, right? And we see Bond and Holly Goodhead with a very strategically placed blanket, of course. And so I love when we get a shot of Frederick Gray and the rest of the men in suits in the back there. They're all sitting cross-legged at the beginning, but when we have the shot, they suddenly uncross their legs and they sit up. I don't know if that's meant to suggest anything, but let's just leave it at that. But anyway, and he says, "Oh my God, what's Bond doing?" Right, and then Q says, I think he's attempting re-entries, right? Which is, I think is right. I don't have to explain what that means, but but I thought the dialogue was very funny, and I think the more it really is very clever and also very over the top, and it's. How should I put it? I wouldn't call it over the top, ha 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 fun. Well, actually, I take that back. I think some of it I do personally react to it as being very very ha 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 type of funny, and so I'm on the side of it. I'm on the side of liking the dialogue, and I think it's very funny and very charming and very cute. Though I do get where people might see it's very maybe hammy or very corny, very campy. But I actually like those campy moments too. I mean, I alluded to those pillow helmets of Drax's guards there, and they don't point their guns at Bond, but they point them upwards. So I thought that's a campy moment. Also, the one young woman, Drax's astronaut crew, and she will have nothing to do with that guy sitting next to him. She's really peeved, I guess, some of Drax's dialogue is so just ludicrous, right? Now you can see the splendor of my conception. Like, I mean, who says this, right? And in a space station in space, right? I don't know, but and the Q scenes are, of course, very funny. Although it's really interesting to see Q testing out a space laser gun that we'll end up used by the U.S. I think it's Army or military, Colonel Scott. I'm not sure. NASA. I'm not sure. What's the jurisdiction what jurisdiction does Colonel Scott work under? But anyway, that's maybe a good question for the James Bond experts. But right, because the U.S. government works under various branches and various agencies, and under that agency authority, certain organs of government are able to act. So I wonder what Colonel Scott is working on. And also, is it me, or does he have this really great turtleneck, Colonel Scott, when he's in space there? And the space fight between the men, that's very much like Thunderball. That's like Thunderball's fight in the water, except now I have it in space. Although I do acknowledge too that that's a bit ludicrous. Well, I'm talking about the moment where the guys fly out, and you've got the great John Barry. It's the black hole John Barry mode. The music there, which is really wonderful. That's another film, by the way, I'd love to talk about on this channel, The Black Hole. I'd love to talk about it. But anyway, back to Moonraker. So we have the men flying out, and then the guys coming out of the of the space shuttle there, and it's pretty much it's a very terrible strategy, actually. It looks cool. It's great visually, cinematically, of course. I love it. As a kid, I love it. But as a military strategy, I think it's very faulty, because you have these guys, these soldiers, out in the open. There's no way to defend. They're totally vulnerable and helpless, and they can't move. So they're just shooting. They're just, what is it? Sitting. What is it? What's the phrase? Sitting ducks. They're just helpless targets. It's either you just shoot them or they'll shoot you, and they can't move, and that's the whole point. So you have this army of men who've been essentially wasted in this way. I'm not sure what the whole point of that was. I think also the space station had its own lasers that I'm sure could have done something against these. But anyway, but it's cool. It looks cool visually. All right. But that's right. So and that's sort of my way of trying to convey to you that I get it. I get how this seems somewhat ludicrous and just off the wall and kind of campy. But there's a great sense of earnestness, and it always puts a smile on my face. And I love the sequence of people. One of the things too is I love the sequence of people who are doing the countdown. Like I love how they're just like they're so droll. It's like they're trying to battle among themselves who can be more like droll, or who can be more like very just underplaying it. Is it Drax, or is it these other guys or these other people, right? And whenever it cuts to someone who says Moonraker 1 liftoff, or Moonraker 2, and they're like, it's like the Drax method of acting. So who can out Drax? That's how I always say that. I always find that really funny. Also, I love the leather jackets that the two guys wear at the very beginning when they steal the shuttle off of the plane. That's wow. And I mean, I thought that was a really great way of opening the film, with this huge explosion in the nighttime skies, and the stealing of the shuttle. That was really mind blowing. But I thought those leather coats of those two guys looked so cool. I always wanted one, and you never see them again. What happened to these two guys? But anyway. These are sort of miscellaneous points that I'm bringing up to try to suggest to you that I'm totally with you. I think it's campy, and I think it's corny, and but you either kind of go with it and you don't. And if you don't go with it, that's okay too. I completely get that. That's not a problem. But if you do go with it, I think there is a lot of potential for a great time out at the movies. Let's see. All right, just skipping down. J. Davis 234, a new space-themed Bond film could be great. Yeah, there was. Die Another Day does have the similar Moonraker vibes, right? I mean, I mentioned Die Another Day too. Of course, it has that over-the-top feel to it, and almost a sci-fi feel to it. But it also does have elements of the actual novel of Moonraker. If you know the novel, I mean, I don't want to get into too much, but if you know the novel, you know what I'm talking about in terms of who the villain is, and identities, and that sort of thing. But I would. That would be really interesting, J. Davis, to see another space Bond. But we'll have to see. I mean, before that, of course, we'll have to see about what's going to happen with the next Bond film. Are we ever going to see that one? If so, where and how, right? But that's a whole nother kettle of fish. But G Money 81 says, I watched this the other night on a whim and really enjoyed it. It's just a fun film. I agree. Yeah. And David Jones says, what a step down this Bond film is. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I'll say it again. What a step down this Bond film is from the previously excellent The Spy Who Loved Me. I can totally understand that, not a problem at all. And let's see. Zyrother says, I enjoy great puns, but there are too many. And the Jaws stuff is just ultra lame. I understand that as well. And Cooper Glover says, yeah, Spy Who Loved Me was way better for the most part. Oh, yeah. Let's see here. Again, I can't handle this. Let's see here. Okay, I've lost my space in the live chat. I see that Spencer, Damn Fool, Idealistic Crusader, has joined us too. That's great. So let me now go through. Again, I apologize for this. I have lost my place in the live chat. I'm like General Gogol here. I've got nothing but problems. Problems. All right. Okay, I've lost my place, so I apologize if I've skipped over, but the earliest place I can go is now. I have a comment from our dear friend Henok. Hello, I hope you're having a sparkling day. I love that phrase. Gaza Mania is here. Hello, it's nice to see you. And Damn Fool, yes, hello, it's nice. And the first comment I can see of yours is Corinne is a lovely and tragic sacrificial lamb. Yes. And the stunning close-ups of her death in the love scene are haunting and foreshadowing her death. Yes, I'm just a humble pilot in the service of the Drax Corporation. Yeah. And Zyrith says, yes, she turns on Drax super easily, I suppose. Yeah, although, like, I mean, right, after all, she does have a heart of gold, right? 18 karat, right? And what I like too is, how should I put it? There was this kind of affinity that you could sense with her even before she and Bond were intimate and they slept with each other. So I always think that she was very much on Bond's side even before that. Although she was very hesitant, of course, about the safe and James don't and all that. But yeah, she does seem to be very much turning on Drax in terms of her allegiances towards him. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know what happened between her and Drax, what the nature of the employment was, etc. But it's all in any event. I think she's really great. Incidentally, I think she's also known. The actress Corinne Clary is known perhaps for many other films. The Story of O as well, and I think if I actually met someone who was in the film The Story of O. I actually met him many years later. Actually, when I was a student, I met him, and I never talked to him too much about The Story of O, but I talked to him a little bit about his career. Very interesting. But anyway, that's a little connection, I suppose, I have with Corinne Clary. It's one of those. What's the phrase? Anyway, sorry about that. But anyway, let's see here. Just going back to the chat. Yeah, Damn Fool, you make a good point about that moment in the Drax house about the Gallibrandt character in the novel, which is very interesting. And also there are little hints of that characterization in the Holly Goodhead character, and maybe especially in the first half of the film, that's for sure. Chandan is here. Hello, it's nice to see you. Great to see you. I hope you're doing well, my friend. And let's see, just going on Here, just scrolling down here. Raymond is here. Hello, Raymond Rodriguez. Yeah, I think when Jaws found love, he would do anything to keep that love. That's why he was transformed to be good, because he knew in his heart that it was right, not only in his eyes but Dolly's. Yes, yes, that's great. And when Jaws meets Dolly, it's of course in Rio after the cable car crashes through the building, and that poor 7-Up ad. And the whole wheel, she helps pull it off, and that's it. And that's another thing too that reminds me of how adverts and ads are treated. We see a lot of at Seiko and Marlboro, and when the ambulance is driving up the hillside there, and then of course we have the great zinger with British Airways, right? And it leads into the great thing of the Magnificent Seven, of course. But yeah. Yeah. Oh, Damn Fool says it still kills me that the 007 Barry theme has been dormant since this point in 1979, one of the most magical pieces of music in history. Yes, you're referring to the and I love how David Arnold, by the way, refers to that. He has the way he uses his hand, in the documentary on the music of James Bond. I think it's For a View to a Kill, right? And it says, he says, oh, it's he said, da, da. I think that's really great. Yeah, it would be great to see it return. I don't know if it'll ever. It's it's a really great theme. That has it's just how should I put it? It has this. It's a sort of a Morse code type of rhythm to it, but it also has this feeling of jolly old England type of feel, which is very much part of the original conception of James Bond as a British spy. So, at least in the film version, anyway. And I mean the Terence Young version of it with all Savile Row and all this, and so I think it would be really great to see it return to. I agree. Let's see. Let's see here. Yeah, Gazamania is also talking about the theme, right? Mentioning Diamonds Are Forever, From Russia with Love, Thunderball. Yeah, You Only Live Twice. There's also mention of You Only Live Twice. And the John Barry score. Love the John Barry score. So let me now take a moment then to just also echo my love too of the John Barry score here. I love this. I love this. I love the, and we were talking last time too about the song, the Moonraker song, and I was mentioning about the lyric, but of course, due to our great friend Damn Fool, Idealist Crusader Spencer, and his love of the lyric and how it has a certain metaphorical significance in terms of dreams and ambition, the Moonraker standing in for our dreams and linked to love and that sort of thing. That makes the lyric, of course, very poignant. So I applaud Spencer for pointing me in that direction. Of course, therefore, it means in the context of this film. So what would be the dream and metaphor that the Moonraker stands in for? It's probably the dream by Drax. And his dream is world domination, or not even domination, it's the creation of a new world order, which is very creepy and very, very terrible. So the application of the dream metaphor language that is so beautifully sung by Shirley Bassey, both at the beginning and the end with the groovy disco version, which I really love, actually. That becomes quite nightmarish when you apply that lyric to the Drax storyline, of course. But the whole point is not to link it immediately to Drax's storyline, but it's just to take it as it is, which is a great song. And I love these. I love the sort of slow ballad type of melodies in major key. I love these, and it's not like a brooding song about, Bond is alone, Bond is always on a mission. I love these light. I don't want to call them. I don't mean light in terms of meaningless, but I mean they're very romantic and very happy, and I love this. And I think John Barry did this very well. in the other Lewis Gilbert film for which his score appears, which is "You Only Live Twice," and so that's a great contribution, I think, for Barry and Shirley Bassey and crew. And then speaking of the score itself, we mentioned the 007 theme. We mentioned the fact that this is a further extension of the application of orchestra, the emphasis of orchestra. We see this play out in the James Bond theme, the famous theme, the iconic theme, but also in the way that the score is applied. I love certain turns of the score too, how it helps us to see the shifting tides. There's a great moment when Holly and Bond are fighting Jaws, excuse me, on the top of the cable car, and it has that great, da 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 da, and and Jaws has the upper hand, but then there's a moment in the middle when it has a thing where da 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 da, when they're fighting Jaws, and then they're able to subdue him enough to throw him into the cable car there. So I like that little turn of music, which helps to show not just a turn in the music, but also a turn in the tide of the actual stuff that we're seeing on screen. And I think that John Barry is able to do this in such a John Barry way. And then it goes back to that motif of the da-dun, da-dun, da, da, which is such a great thing too, because it matches perfectly with that moment, because it matches with Jaws nodding his head like and is giving the signal to the guy in the control room there to push the button. So it's like the da 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 is almost linked to the visual cue of Jaws nodding his head like da 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 da, and also the guy, the bald guy, the Chandor lookalike in Moonraker, pushing the button like da 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 da, and that sort of thing. So I like that. That's a really great motif as well. And another thing too about the Barry score, we mentioned earlier in the live chat about how this film seems to just zip along at sort of breakneck speed in terms of going from location to location to location, almost not even stopping for breath. But I think arguably it really helps the propulsion of the narrative and the momentum of the film. This is also the case for the Ken Adams sets. You count all the Ken Adams sets and how much they're used, with the possible exception of the final set at the end, the space station set. For the most part, the sets are used and then they're never seen again, which is amazing to think about. The same could be true also for the manner in which John Barry's score operates. There seem to be so many themes. Of course, it's all linked to more or less the Moonraker theme, which is, of course, reprised again and again very artfully and very skillfully. But there are also many different themes that we hear and we never hear again. The death of Corinne in the woods is one example. The scene where James Bond is in the jungle and he sees the woman in white. And we hear that theme, but we never, I don't think we hear it again. We don't hear the space station theme until the very end of the film. And then we hear the 007 theme, the da-da-da-da-da theme, and that's great. And then we have other means by which John Barry uses musical motifs, and then the cable car is another example, and then we don't hear them again. Which is amazing. And to top it all, we have little extra added bits, Magnificent Seven, and also little interesting cues with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and then also 2001: A Space Odyssey, right? Right? So that's all there in terms of the musical tapestry. And this is all to say that just like the sets and just like the locations, I would say the music too operates in this very subtly applied, yet still, I think, there, sort of a fast-paced type of momentum. But it's also done in a very John Barry way, because the notes are applied very mellifluously and very methodically. And so it still gives us time to take a breath and to just to enjoy it and to feel the situation going on. I really appreciate that very much. And we should say too that where the film does not use music too, these are also very exciting moments. I mentioned the whole scene between Jaws and Manuela. There isn't any music there. We just hear the background of the carnival, and it's actually quite eerie and scary. But then it turns into the da 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 da, and then Jaws does the whole thing with his hands, right? And so that's just a wonderful part of the musical tapestry of this, and so I think John Barry and company know when to turn it on and then turn it off. To let us enjoy it, and it's also helping to add to the momentum of the film, and it's a return of John Barry after a brief absence from the previous film, as we know. So I think it's great, and then we have the great disco vibe at the very end, right? Take us around the world one more time, right? Why not? It's great, absolutely great stuff. Let's see. Yeah. All right, just going down here. Let's see. I'm sorry, skipping down here. So Gaza Mania says, A View to a Kill score is amazing. Yes, we'll have to talk about A View to a Kill very soon. Yes, yes. Yes, Heddock says, Moonraker 79, the music track boat chase is sort of a farewell to the 007 theme. Yes, yes. So if it is indeed a farewell, just as Damn Fool and I are lamenting, then yeah, it's still I think it's a great film. It's slower, right? It's slower paced than usual, than we're used to seeing. Although, is it slower? What's slower? Is it slower than Thunderball? I forget. Does anyone know? Which is slower in pace, Thunderball or Moonraker? Anyway, let's see. Let's see. Yeah, Damn Fool says, I swear Q's re-entry line has to be a Tom Mankiewicz line. Yeah, that could be the case, yes. Let's see, Zyrother launched into space. My favorite Q, stunningly beautiful on its own. Although, did they mention that in the commentary effort? I don't think. But anyway, mixed visual effects is incredible. Zyrother flight into space. Sorry, flight into space. Zyrother space. Flight into Sapesy. Yeah, I know. Don't worry. But I do a lot of. I have a lot of typos too. Like sometimes I say, like if I type greetings from Tokyo, my friend. Sometimes the fingers will slip and it'll say greetings, my fiend. I'll sometimes say greetings from Tokyo, my fiend. And if I say that to someone, if I'll try to catch it early. Otherwise, I think that would be a very terrible greeting indeed. But. Let's see. Victor. Hello, Victor. Your new haircut looks great. Thank you very much. I got it done yesterday. Thank you. Let's see. All right, just scrolling down here. Yeah. Yeah, damn full idealistic crusaders. The most unrealistic part, immediate U.S. government space launch with army commandos and space lasers. Yes. Yeah. And Erwin, thank you, Erwin. Hello. So this was to my question. So Colonel Scott works for NASA. Yeah, good head. No, thank you. Thank you very much. So Colonel Scott works for NASA. So do they have like military ranks in NASA? I don't know what the inner workings of NASA are like, but I suppose you could have someone who's military and also works for NASA, right? I mean that's possible. So okay, thank you very much for that. So right, because he says, Colonel Scott, don't shoot, hold your fire. Yeah, that's great. And right, I love how Colonel Scott, like he's got the gun trained, but he does that thing that actors do when they're gun acting. They can't look away, so he uses his head. Hold your fire. I like that. That's great. Let's see. All right. Yeah, they are really organized. Yeah, really quick. And is he the one? He's the one who actually talks to Gogol, right? Okay, so he has a lot of authority too, right? Really a lot of authority. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm just scrolling down here for this interest in time. Zyrother says good sound design. Oh, sorry. It's Damn Fool says yes. The space battle. Let's see. Space Battle is TV's Thunderball's Battle in Space, yes, which is essentially yet another revisited spectral flight started by Gypsy Camp in From Russia with Love. Yes, yes. So I was making a comment too about this is like Thunderball in space. Although I do revert to my earlier comment about how this is actually tactically quite difficult to do. But again, at this point, right, we're not relying so much on tactics as we are on spectacle. But that's fine too. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, Damn Fool says one of the best jokes is Gogol on the red phone in pajamas with lady friend and problems. Problems, problems. Yes. Yes. That's quite a problem that Gogol has, by the way. Yes. Erwin says, yeah, also quite funny, both NASA and Drax have laser guns, but Q is working on it. Well, yes, yes, exactly. So I always thought, how did that work? Right? So they're working, so are they, so if we assume that they're all working at the same time on the same type of laser gun, they're working on the same type of laser gun. Apparently the CIA and British Secret Service are working on the same type of dart because of the diary and thing. Although you have to think, the diary dart is very, do you think that that could be used? Like the watch thing could be used really well, but the diary dart, like, oh, I'm in a bind here. What am I going to villain, let me refer to my diary. Let me write something in my boom. Will that work? I'm not sure. I guess it could. I guess it depends on the situation. But I always think that the British Secret Service had a right. It was ahead in the dart gun, or the dart arms race. With the CIA. But anyway, you're right about the lasers too. Although it could also be a joint thing, I'm not sure. I mean, it's the James Bond world has never been shy of seeing joint cooperation with otherwise seemingly, a frosty relationship type of governments, right? This, of course, right, which is one of the great mysteries, and we'll talk about in Inspire Loved Me. If even though they're on a sort of a temporary mode of détente, if you will, between the Soviet Union and the British government, I can kind of understand that, but I still don't understand why on earth they would still allow Gogol and Anya Masova into Q's workshop, which is essentially confidential information of the highest order of the British government. Why would they allow these two agents of the Soviet Union into their secret workshop? And it has nothing to do with the mission of trying to find Stromberg in that always boggles the mind and stuff. And it leads to a joke later, but about stealing blueprints of the car 2 years ago. But that actually loses a little bit of punch, in my eyes, anyway, because of the fact that they allowed them into this Q workshop in the first place. But anyway. We do see, of course, that Q is not infallible in this world, right? I mean, if Trevelyan is able to figure out the thing with the watch in GoldenEye, then that probably means that there probably should be some more safeguards established in terms of Q and the gadgets. But in any event, yes, the whole thing with the laser guns is very funny. Yeah. All right. Raymond continues with Jaws. Yes, Jaws does still hate Bond, but then that's because Dolly wasn't there, and when he is with her in space, he knows that Dolly would be upset with him if he continued to be bad. Yes, Damn Fool says, yes, I wanted the leather hijacker jacket as well. Yes. I thought those, one was brown and one was black, I think. If I remember correctly, I thought that was very cool. Yes. Let's see. All right, let's see. Just scrolling down here. Sorry, I've lost my place again. Mike Eli says, I believe Tarantino had talked about the possibility of making a Bond in space film. Okay, that would be interesting. I thought, Cooper Clever says, I thought the dialogue was awkward when Moore says, of course, someone not fitting your requirements. Most interesting, talking about the end there. Also, right, the uncomfortable bits, right, when Roger Moore says, oh, a woman, and that sort of thing. But Let's see. Richard Wagner says, greetings from Salzburg, Austria. Hello, it's nice to see you. Hello. Samuel's back. Hello, it's nice to see you back, my friend. Raymond's Spy Who Loved Me is your favorite Bond film. It's the first film you saw in the theater when I was 8 with my grandfather. Oh, well done. We're going to talk about Spy Who Loved Me very soon. David Jones, Edgar Wright should direct a Bond film. That would be interesting. That would be very interesting. I'd actually love to see, I'm going off topic here, I apologize, but I'd love to see someone like, I don't know, who would be a great Bond director? I mean, people talk about Christopher Nolan. That would be a great Bond film. But he kind of did a Bond film with Inception, I think. That because Inception feels that has an On Her Majesty's Secret Service type of vibe to it, especially with the snow scenes. But oh god, yeah. We'll have to talk later, maybe in a different video, about who could direct a Bond film. Let's see. Yeah, Erwin mentions the Christopher Nolan thing, which I just yes. Yeah, it might be overcomplicated. Yeah. I don't know what would happen. Like, maybe it would be in reverse chronological order, and then we'd go back to Bond being a kid. I don't know. Maybe then he could, and maybe that could like figure out the whole thing. I don't know. That would help if it's still in the Craig universe, which it probably won't. We'd still figure out something with Oberhauser and all that. So that might be interesting. Anyway, okay. Anyway. We can talk about that when we talk about Spectre. Let's see. Cooper Clever 70. Yes, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Yes, connected to other. Yes, that's right. That's what I mean. Thank you. Raymond Rodriguez mentioned Jon Favreau. That would be interesting. Damn Fool continues. Barry's work on Moonraker is a major turning point for him and really marks the point where he transitions, yes, to his late period romanticism. That's right, the so-called out of Africa period. But right, we do see. I understand what you mean, the transitions, and I do understand this this general line of critical thinking. But we do see a little bits of hints of this, of course, in the, sort of earlier than this, in the early 70s. But I totally get what you mean. One of my favorite John Barry scores during this time is The Black Hole, which is right. It was released the same year, right, 79. So. I think like The Black Hole and Moonraker, what a great combination that is. But let's see. Yeah, great point, Damn Fool. Great point as always. Richard says Clary's death. You're talking about Corinne's death. It's pretty brutal compared to the cheesy tone of the movie. Quite unsettling. Yes, I agree, and especially because she's so helpless, and she's been such a great ally of Bond, even in the short amount of time that we've gotten to know her. Erwin says, I also said this in the last stream, but Moonraker score is my second favorite Bond score behind On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Yes, well done and great choice. I think this is a great score too. I don't know if it would be like my favorite ever. Maybe I have a great love for On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and I love The Living Daylight. If we're talking purely about Barry scores, I love The Living Daylights to bits. I think that could be my favorite John Barry score. I think that's great, and Aha and The Pretenders. If there was a man, I think so. But Moonraker, yes, the sheer volume of stuff, and the Barryness of the stuff, and the feel of the romanticism, to borrow Spencer's word, and the recollections to the past with the 007 theme, and all the themes that are very much consistently Barry, how they link to the visual images and very subliminally. All this and more. It's great stuff, and there's a real calm vibe to it. It doesn't, I mean, I mentioned that it has a momentum, but it never feels rushed, which is a really interesting paradoxical dynamic, right? There's a lot of stuff there, but it doesn't feel rushed. And I think that's in keeping with the Roger Moore attitude of the film and Roger Moore's approach to the film. Roger Moore James Bond. He gets into fights, of course, and he gets into situations, but he never rushes it. What one of the what does he say when he gets to Rio? How do you kill 5 hours in Rio if you don't samba? Is it 5 hours? If that's the case, you'd think that he would use the. I mean, if it was Daniel Craig, he'd be like, I don't care if you're here, Manuel. I'm just going to leave you and desert you. I'm going to go out on my own and just figure out what the heck's going on with this Drax in Rio, right? So, but he's like, no, I'm just going to sit here and just enjoy my drink. And oh, you've mentioned Carlos and Wilmsburg and how they might be this subsidiary of Drax group here in Rio, and they might be involved in the importing of whatever globe thing is part of Drax's plan. Okay, yeah, I get it. We'll take care of it. But first, I'll just hang out here in the president's suite. And we'll just have a good time, and then we'll just wait until the nighttime to do our job, right? So that's the Roger Moore way, and so there's a laid back feel to it, right? Which is I think in keeping also with the calm feel of the music, but there's still a sense of menace and the eerie and the romantic and the beautiful, and that's also captured by John Barry oh so well. So you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Kai is here. Hello, Kai Berg is here, our dear friend. Good night, and talk to you soon, I hope. Best regards. Let's see. A Damn Fool. Yes, the title song is haunting and can be taken in many ways, or seen as being sung from several characters' point of view. Yes. Even Jaws, too. And I don't mean this facetiously. I don't mean this as a joke. I mean this very earnestly. Even Jaws, too. And it also has been taken, I think it can taken from Bond. And I think the title sequence helps that very well with the shot of Roger Moore's Bond and the parachute, right? Right? It could be about him or it could be by him, right? Where are you? Or it could be from his point of view talking about Jaws. Where are you? You're gone or something. Or it could be something else entirely. You're absolutely right, Spencer. Oh, and you make reference to Somewhere in Time. Yes, interesting. Somewhere in Time, that might be an interesting topic for another day. Right? Let's see. Gaza Mania, Bond versus the Python was a great song. Yes, and I mentioned it too. I love the way it ends. Jaws going like this to the camera, and it goes to his feet, to his face. Da da na 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 na. It ends silent, and then that gives enough time for the final beat. Bond punching him in the sun. Boom. That's it. And then Drax enters with his two pillow cushioned henchmen. That's great. So and that and I referred to it earlier, how that is very much reminding me of a lovely moment, a Barry's music moment in Diamonds Are Forever, with the close up of the pairs of feet of two henchmen, Wint and Kidd. How many times have you seen Moonraker? I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. I can't. I don't know. I can't. It's too. I probably see this. It's one of those things where I go in phases where there can be months on end where I don't see a Bond film, but then when I get back into Bond films, I just go through them constantly, many times, over and over again. I have no idea, but I've seen it. As I say, the first time I saw it was maybe 7, 8, 9, something like that, years of age, and it's just been a great ride ever since. Wolfrat's response, Damn Fool probably is like maybe several hundred. Yeah, yeah. Wolfrat's maybe twice ballpark. Yeah, that's an interesting question about how many times we've seen the film. Andrew Bashford, hello. I was watching Goldfinger, but found out you was on, so paused to watch you. Wow, Andrew, I'm so honored. Thank you. Are you enjoying Goldfinger, by the way? I hope you are. I'm sorry to have taken you away from that great film, but I'm so glad that you're here, if you still are here. In warmest regards, and please enjoy Goldfinger, and let me know what you think afterwards. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, the Close Encounters Easter egg. Yes, yes. Uh, what can you tell me, Spencer? Do you know what the number is? What or Irwin? Do you know, or anyone? What is the number? What number did that come out to on the touchpad there? By the way, my eyes aren't so good. I mean, I wear these glasses. I mean, they're big, but they're also indicative of the fact that my eyesight is not so good. So I always have to squint. My eyesight, whatever it is, I have to go to the whatever is the optometrist or the ophthalmologist or whoever, whatever eye doctor that Bond and Holly Goodhead and Jaws and that bald henchman go to, because they can see distance on those cable cars like no other. Am I right or am I right? I mean, they can totally see. I can't, right? I can barely see to the end of the room, let alone to whatever distance that is in the cable car. And they can right? They can communicate, which is really great. But anyway, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, so the question I asked was about the pacing of the 007 theme, which is slower, Moonraker or Thunderball. Cooper Clever suggests maybe they're the same. Yeah, perhaps they are. And Damn Fool also mentions the Disco End theme version. Yes, great stuff, great stuff. Yes. Yes, Henok says, yes, Mr. Bond, you defy all my attempts to, you're right, you're not a sportsman. You defy all my attempts to plan an amusing death for you. Yes, sportsman, right? So this is very much in line with the most dangerous game type of thing, which we see actually hints of in the film Octopussy. Kamal Khan and Octopussy, the villain there, which is very interesting too, because as you know, from those of you who know the novel of Moonraker, there are ties between the novel of Moonraker and the film Octopussy. So that's an interesting little circuitous route there as well, in terms of the sportsmanlike aspect that Drax seems to be positioning himself in. So, interesting way of describing it. Well done. Oh, and Hennock says, well, I thought Thunderball and From Russia with Love sounded more pompous and high key. Okay, and high key, yes. Whereas Moonraker was going for a more slower descending tempo. Yes, yes. Yeah, Damn Fool Idealist says, the Colonel Scott, don't shoot, hold your fire is burned into my brain because it's the disc break on Laserdisc Letterbox. Right. And then it goes after that, right? It's the great thing of the the close up of the guy's face, and then like the thing, right? I'll try to. It's like this, right? And it's like suddenly like that, right? Like that, right? So that's great too. Ah, that's really wonderful. Yeah, so and he's just like Jaws is just like I'm not through with you, and I'm just gonna keep doing and then like yeah. Man, that he's just huge. What? How tall is he, by the way? Just huge. Wow, wow. Let's see. Armand says the art direction must have been heavily influenced by 2001. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, good observation. Gaza says Q also had the laser gun. Yes, that's right. Yes. And the melting wax head, yeah, which also had a mustache too, right? There's a lot of mustache thing going on here in this film, even down to the targets for the laser gun in Q's lab, I suppose, which is great. Great. I have nothing against mustache. I don't think any of Drax's, like the astronaut super race candidate men and women, right? I don't think any of the men had mustaches, right? So perhaps, although Drax did, so maybe I don't know. Maybe that was a disqualifying factor in his selection process. I don't know. But in any event, we should take a look at that. I don't think they did. Incidentally, if these men are supposed to be examples of excellent, human physical shape. I mean, they look a little bit, I don't know about you, but when they're standing there listening to Drax's speech, you can see them standing there side by side. They look a little bit a little, some of the guts are hanging out just a little bit. Maybe it's the way that the camera is hanging. I don't know, but maybe they could do with a little bit more times at the gym or the sauna, perhaps. Maybe they'll have more time after Drax destroys the world, perhaps. Who knows? But anyway, there's a little bit of a plumpness there, I suppose. Not with everyone, but with some of them. So that's interesting. Anyway, yeah. Okay, so Damn Fool is picking up on my diary dart thing, the fairly deadly diary dart thing. The diary dart is tiny and more like a last ditch. Yeah, good point. I don't think it has any poison or armor piercing capabilities. Although you never know. It was colored red, so you never know. I mean, I would assume that it would have to have some poison capabilities. After all, the pen did. Right, because we see the drip of the liquid, which we assume is poison, and we have to assume that's why the snake died so quickly the way it did, right? Because it would just otherwise be a pinprick, right? But so I would think the dart would also have some kind of poison capability. Otherwise, it would just be a dart like sticking out in some guy. I don't know, but let's see. Yeah, you're right. It's probably a last ditch. It's almost like it would be like we talked about You Only Live Twice the other day, right? And it would be at the end. It would be, I'm going to destroy all your allies, Mr. Bond. What do you think of that? What do you think, Mr. Bond? And it's like, well, if I'm going to have to watch this on TV, may I smoke? Of course you can smoke. Here are your cigarettes, and boom, that's all. So maybe if it were made today, right? Because Bond can't smoke today, of course, right? After all, if it were Pierce Brosnan in You Only Live Twice, right? Because smoking is a filthy habit, according to Pierce Brosnan's James Bond. So if that were in the same position, if Pierce Brosnan's Bond were in the same position, Blofeld's like, you could watch this on TV. And he's like, well, if I have to watch it on TV, he couldn't say, may I smoke, right? So it'd probably be something like, if he could rely on something like the diary, if I have to watch this on TV, may I write something in my diary? And then Blofeld will be like, oh, yes, of course, you can write something in here. Give him his diary. And you write something. And boom, he shoots the dart and it disables the guy. But that probably would be an interesting last ditch. But it's interesting to see how that figures in. But I suppose, yeah. Anyway. Let's see here. Sorry about this. Okay. I think we're going to start winding down here. So begin, I'm going to continue on with Moonraker for another 10 minutes or so. And then afterwards, let's start to begin winding down. And also think, anyone else who's still here, think about what film you want to talk about in the next Bond live stream. We'll do a little thing. We'll just try to decide together. And so just begin thinking about it, and then we'll start trying to figure out what next Bond film to discuss. But we'll just wind down Moonraker for now. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, MBP is here. Hello. Hello, it's nice to see you. Yeah, Erwin says, Bollinger, if it's 69, you were expecting me. Yes. One of the greatest double entendres in the franchise. Yes. Let's see. Yes. Hanok says Star Wars came out in 1977. Yes, which is apparently one of the reasons why this film, not For Your Eyes Only, came after The Spy Who Loved Me. Kubrick Lover mentions the evolution of John Barry as a musical artist. Armin mentions David Fincher as a potential director for James Bond. That would be interesting. Erwin mentions Steve McQueen. Yes, that would be very interesting. Yes, thank you, Damful. How do you kill 5 hours in Rio if you don't samba? Yes, Erwin, that's Bond's scathing review of the city of Rio de Janeiro. That's a good point. I didn't think of that. That's actually a kind of that's a put down on Rio, right? There's probably a lot to do, right? Although, yeah, okay. Oh, that's Roger Moore for you. Yes. Um, yeah. Um, I mean, we have to admit, this James Bond, the Moonraker James Bond, is really he's just like firing on all thrusters here. It's like I guess the only it's Holly Goodhead who's very resistant to his charms to the point of loathing, right? I'll try to say that word again in my best Daniel Craig voice, loathing, right? But um, yeah, Holly Goodhead really doesn't like Bond. I love that look, as I mentioned, of Holly Goodhead, and when she's looking out in the telescope and she sees Bond at the cable car place, and it's like, oh, I can't believe this. You're here. Oh, she has that really terrible, like, oh, I hate you look. Um, but that's not true for Corinne, and that's not true for Manuela, right? But I like Manuela as a character too. She's very, she knew exactly what to say in terms of C and W. Yes, so that was good. And oh, Neil is here. Hello, it's nice to see you from Liverpool. It's nice, and we'll see a Timothy Dalton movie on live chat soon. Take care, mate. Yes, we actually did talk about The Living Daylights, I think, a couple months back. But there's one more, of course, The License to Kill. So that will be very soon. And Zyrith is 1359, I think. Thank you very much. Thank you. What is that? 1359? Wait. Da. So that's five. Is it 5 digits or 4? I don't know. Or maybe one is held for a long enough time to count as 2 notes. I don't know. But and wait, I don't know. I'm maybe there's a repeat of a note that means a repeat of a number. I'm not sure. Okay, so let's see. Yeah. I don't know the number. Aaron says, I don't know the number, but how in the world could he have both seen it and remember instantly? Well, it's Bond, I guess. Yes, exactly. It's Bond. And I always remember, I was so fascinated as a kid when the poison drops and those 2 poor scientist guys, like, you know, and I was, for whatever reason, I was so fascinated by the way that the airlock door worked, and it just would like the cushioning of the airlock door would start. And I always thought as a kid, for whatever reason, I thought that meant like the metal around the door was melting or something like that. But I realized later, no, it was the airlock mechanism commencing in order to prevent the poison air from getting into the outer periphery. So yeah, very good stuff. Very good stuff indeed. So I'm just scrolling down here. Let's see. And Cooper Glover 1972 says, how come there conveniently is a chain in the cable car for Bond and Goodhead to go down cable cars? Well, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know where that chain came from, but it was probably, but he just says get the chain, so I don't know. That's kind of it's there. So I don't. I mean, chains can be around, I suppose, but it's a good point. Excuse me. All right, we're almost. What is it? We're at 8:45. And so we've been at this for about 2 hours and 45 minutes. Again, not Spencer level, that's for sure. It's not. It's my live streams are definitely not the level of our dear friends, Aaron Pinn or Damn Fool Idealistic Crusader. By the way, another shout out for Damn Fool Idealistic Crusader. You have to check out his channel. That live stream. What was it? You did a live stream. You did a number of them recently on James Whale, also on Sean Connery, and so well done. Well, I was like, it's like if you want to go to, if you want, it's like, oh, if I want to read a biography about James Whale, I can either go and read a biography on James Whale, or I can watch Damn Fool Idealistic Crusader's live stream, which is on his channel, and just watch that because it's amazing, absolutely amazing. He's like a walking encyclopedia of stuff, and James Bond included. So you got to check out Damn Fool Idealistic Crusader. And our dear friend Cooper Clever 1972. you've noticed Cooper Glover has been so active in the live chat. He's not just an active participant, he's also helping to lead the chat. So thank you so much. Cooper Glover 1972, great friend. If you want to see his channel, check out Cooper Glover 1972. The name's there. Wonderful stuff, wonderful stuff. So thank you, the two of you. And everyone else too. Erwin, Gazamania, Henok, Wolfgratz, Zyrother, Raymond. Gosh, I'm sorry. Mike. I'm gonna forget if I've forgotten you. Sorry, Arman. So many people here. Thank you so much. If you want to be a moderator on the live chats, just drop me a line and let me know. I'll be very happy to do so. So just, let's see. All right, just, okay, I'm going to just make my closing comments here, and we will end. So let's see. Yeah, let's see. All right. Oh yes, Erwin says the look on Jaws, his face after crashing the guy on the ladder is priceless. He has that he's like he smiles and he's like yeah, it's like, you're right. That's almost as that's kind of like the double take pigeon too. It's like the pigeon's like this. And Jaws is like yeah. He just takes that extra moment. You're absolutely right. The Ken Adams sets are amazing, as Gazamania says. I agree 1,000%. Gazamania, well done. The Damn Fool says, I love that we are nerding out on dart types. Yes, I agree about the red flag on the dart. Yeah, we're talking about the dart and the dart and the color that we see when we see the dart fly out of the diary. Yeah. Yeah, we must get them in the stores for Christmas, right? Let's see. Yeah, everyone says it's also interesting that compared to the novel, yeah, Drax's idea of a super race in the film includes Is it interracial relationships? I'm not quite sure. I don't know if it's interracial relationships. I think we have separate races that are represented, at least from what I can tell. I don't know if it's interracial. But if it is, that would be a very interesting point. You're absolutely right. Let's see. Scrappy Coco. Oh, hey, since it seems like the stream is ending, and I apologize if the question has been asked before, but who would be your pick for a new Bond? Oh, that's a good question. I have a number of ideas, but oh gosh, it's really tough. Maybe that might be a topic for another day. I'm sorry, but yeah, it's a tough one. But I know a lot of people mention oh gosh, there are a number of people. Maybe we'll have to do another video about this, but that might be a good one. Maybe after we talk about Spectre and Daniel Craig's Spectre. Or maybe by that time, who knows, maybe No Time to Die will have been released on streaming. I don't know. Should I have said that? I don't know. But anyway, maybe if No Time to Die comes out, then we can talk about it then. Or maybe sooner, who knows. But yeah, there are some ideas that I have. Good question, by the way. Great question. Who do you think would be a good new Bond? Let's see. Oh, Henok is gone. So thank you very much, Henok. Thank you for your time. And likewise, have a great sparkling day and evening. Cheers, my friend. We'll talk soon. Let's see. Oh gosh, and great conversation here. Mike Eli says, for the next film, I'm going to nominate The Living Daylights, but please feel free to shoot me. Yeah, I think we've done that one, but that's we can always think if anyone wants to do the License to Kill, that's going to be good as well. K. Amitai Yehoshua de Boy. Oh, I thought it was a live stream of the movie itself. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's not. I'm sorry. the title is a bit misleading. Perhaps I'm so sorry. I should change that. I guess yeah, but oh well. Sorry about that. But you can find the film. It is available on disc and maybe streaming somewhere, so you can find it hopefully relatively easily. I hope you can, and I hope you're well. Let's see here. Anyway, my friend, let's see. Goodbye, Steed. Hello, thank you. Thank you very much for your kind words. Goodbye, Steve. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Joel is here. Hello. It's nice to see you. It's great to see you as always. And Damful, and I was referring to Damful Idealistic Crusaders live stream on Connery. He talked for 6 hours. So I've spoken for almost 3. So that's my time today times 2. Okay. So, all right, that's great stuff, Spencer. I love it. Yeah, I love it. You're fantastic, my friend. Okay, and the MVP says 12589. Is that Rick? Is that decided? Is it 12589? If that's it, I think that's right. Oh, great, great. Okay, thank you so much. And Goodbye Steed said, I reckon Lewis Gilbert made the same Bond film 3 times, starting with You Only Live Twice, The Spy Who Loved Me, and then on to Moonraker. Yeah, and I think in particular, I didn't talk about it because I didn't want to get too much into the Spy Who Loved Me discussion, but yes, there is in particular, a Spy Who Loved Me remake-ish type of vibe to it. Yeah, there's definitely that vibe going on. I agree. But it's great. I mean, that's one of the great things too about Bond films is we have different eras that also can be marked by the directors and the screenwriters. So sometimes we have Lewis Gilbert, and also maybe by extension Lewis Gilbert and Christopher Wood, and then also we have Tom Mankiewicz and Guy Hamilton, and then we have John Glenn, and it's like the Michael G. Wilson era. That's one of the exciting things, and I think this era is very exciting. So. You're absolutely right. Thank you so much, my friend. Oh, Sexy Monkey, hello. It's nice to see you. Yes. Jason Isaacs says Bond. That would be interesting. Yeah. Oh gosh, why am I? Why am I? There's one actor that I thought would be great. I forget his name. It escapes me. But okay, so let's end the Moonraker live stream. So once again, let me say in closing that this film is great. It is fun. It reminds me of my childhood. It also is a film that I watch through those eyes, but also as an adult, I have a lot of fun with it. It's campy, it's cheesy, but that's part of the appeal. There are many lines of dialogue that I think are memorable. The John Barry score is effing fantastic. That's 2 F's, double F, effing fantastic. And the sets, the locations, everything is, I think, it's pure Bond. I think also, one of the great traits of Roger Moore as a Bond is that he's very versatile. I think he can do Bond in a very gritty, down-to-earth way. We will see this in particular with films like For Your Eyes Only. We also saw it, I think, in Live and Let Die. I think he does it really well. He also does the out of this world stuff, the over the top villain plan stuff really well too. Spy Who Loved Me comes to mind. Not Octopussy, well, kind of Octopussy, but not really. More A View to a Kill comes to mind. Moonraker, of course, comes to mind almost immediately, but I think he does it really well, and that's a real a positive aspect of Roger Moore's outing as James Bond. I mean, I love Connery, don't get me wrong, but there is something of an interesting way that Connery acts in this Lewis Gilbert over-the-top type of world that was constructed in You Only Live Twice versus how Roger Moore seems to act in the Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker atmosphere. Maybe it's an unfair comparison. Now that I think about it, it is pretty unfair. So I'll probably let me take that back. But my point that I was trying to make was not something against Connery, which I love, but also just to say that Roger Moore, I think, is very versatile. So let me just end it that way. But finally, this is a film that, as I say, I go back to. I saw it as recently as last night, And I was just happy and smiling and having fun all the way through. And I think I will continue to do so to the very end days. So with that, that is Moonraker. Thank you very much for your time, my friends. And with that, let us decide what film we should talk about next time. I don't know exactly when it will be, but when I have it figured out, I will let you know the time and date. But let's figure out the film itself. What should we talk about for the next live stream? Please let me know what titles you would like to think about, and we will try to develop as a kind of rough estimate of a consensus here what film you would like to talk about. So the floor is open. Anyone you want, anything you want to talk, let's do a friendly debate, if you will, and let's go from there. So what film you want to talk about next time? The floor is yours. And let's see. All right. Erwin says, how about in honor of the late, great Sean Connery, discuss Diamonds Are Forever? Yeah, Diamonds Are Forever, that would be interesting. Really interesting. I'm not sure if I missed your response because my connection dropped out, but I was wondering if you had ever played Everything or Nothing. No, I haven't played Everything or Nothing. I'm not a big James Bond game person. So I haven't played that. I haven't played From Russia with Love. I've played a little bit of GoldenEye, but that's about it. So I suppose I should, but I'm not a big gamer now. Although I have a Nintendo Switch, I really love the Nintendo Switch, and so my favorite game on the Nintendo Switch is Splatoon 2. I love Splatoon. That's like the coolest game ever. I love that game so much. But anyway, let's see. So Zyrotha's Diamonds would be a great choice. Goodbye Steed said, despite its shortcomings and repeating themselves, that this made my top 3 more Bond picks. The Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker, For Your Eyes Only. Yeah. Sexy Monkey asks about what movie has an all-time high. Octopussy. Kubrick Lover 72 says, in honor of Sean Connery's death, maybe we should cover another Sean Connery Bond. Let's see. Orwan says about Diamonds. Also, plus there are some scenes set in my hometown of Amsterdam. Oh, really? Oh, great. And I love the whole scene in the Amster. Right. After all, U is for umbrella. Right. We take it lest it rain. We hope we shall not need it until we are home again. I think that's how it goes. Yeah. And talk about smiles, right? We talked about smiling here in Moonraker, and Jaws smiling a lot, and I think that's part of the charm and appeal of Jaws in this film. But talk about Diamonds Are Forever has a lot of smiling, especially in the dentist's office, right? And it's great stuff, and the great sting of the music cue that leads into the dun 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 dun, right? Anyway, let's see. Zyrotha also champions Diamonds. Yes. Let's see. All right. Damn Fool says, if I ever am in charge of a large facility, I will have the Chime and Moonraker preset launch sequence recording on loudspeakers. Yes. Moonraker 1, lift off. Moonraker 2, lift off. And I love how during that whole thing, like, Bond has to get into, so why did you take your own space shuttle? Yeah, because I needed it. One of my own Moonrakers developed a fault in assembly or something. Yeah, that's great. Okay. Okay, let's see. So talking about the games, you should definitely play Everything or Nothing. It essentially takes the place of a 5th Brosnan film, and Willem Dafoe plays Zorn's disciple with Jaws. Interesting. Very interesting. I'll have to check it out then. And then you also mentioned For Russia with Love. The game is a fun game, but it builds off of Everything or Nothing, which is arguably the best Bond game ever. I love Nightfire. Just the Disc, hello, our dear friend Just the Discs, hello, my friend. So you're just in time to figure out what film we should talk about next. Halifax mentioned From Russia with Love earlier. Sorry, I'm just going to go back here. Wolfgratz also mentioned Diamonds. Oh, let's see. Here we go. And Sexy Monkey said, you mentioned, yes, Roger Moore was your neighbor for a decade. That's, yeah, you mentioned that's really cool. That is really cool. Kubrick Lover nominates Diamonds as well. Mike says Diamonds. Halifax, Skyfall. It's great. Goodbye, Steve. For Your Eyes Only. Wouldn't mind. Wolfgratz also mentions Diamonds. Damn Fool Talks mentions Diamonds. Scrappy Coco, Diamonds. Joel says Tomorrow Never Dies. Oh, that's a great. I love Tomorrow Never Dies. I use the word. I sometimes overuse the word outstanding in my videos, and I acknowledge that. But I always like to think that I can never say it the way that Elliot Carver says it in Tomorrow Never Dies. Outstanding, right? Let's see. Sorry about that. Going back. So Joel says Tomorrow Never Dies, right? Kubrick's, yes. Diamonds, yes. Halifax, From Russia with Love was really fun. I agree. Gaza Mania says License to Kill or A View to a Kill. If not, Diamonds Are Forever. Luke says, which haven't you done? I saw Thunderball recently. Would you like to hear your thoughts on it? So yes. So what have we done? We've done all the debut Bonds. So we've done Dr. No, On Her Majesty's, Live and Let Die, GoldenEye, Casino Royale, and then we did Moonraker, and You Only Live Twice, right? So now we can go back to anything. So Thunderball might be an interesting choice too. And let's see, scrolling down here. So any other choices? Anyone else want to chime in? Let me know what films you want. There are some other films that haven't been mentioned, of course, but so far, it looks like the consensus is Diamonds Are Forever. If anyone wants to say, Halifax says, did you all like Skyfall? Did anyone find it great? Maybe I'll save my comments for Skyfall when we get to it. I do have I do have my own take on it. So I have my own personal take. I am not sure, for me, how well it holds up to repeat viewings, and I have certain points that I'm still trying to reconcile vis-a-vis the Daniel Craig James Bond era. And so my sense is I'll probably have a better idea personally as to how Skyfall fits into my own personal sort of makeup or chemistry after the final film. I think it's the final film, right? No Time to Die is released. So once that's out, I'll probably, because also we have to remember that the Daniel Craig era has a really strong sense of continuity, more so than the other actors. And so I think my sense is that this final film will probably have a way of concluding this continuity. And so in that sense, I think it will probably help me in how I view. For instance, I see Quantum of Solace. When I first saw the film, I was like, what is this film? What's going on? But actually now I see it more and more, and actually I find it a very strong film. It has a lot of weaknesses, but I think Quantum of Solace has really strong points that make it very fresh and inventive. It's also very difficult to understand because I'm trying to keep track of the plot. I really have no ideas sometimes what the plot's going on, but that's part of the fun of going through these films, I think. But my point is that I think something similar will happen with Skyfall and Spectre, hopefully, when No Time to Die comes out. At least that's my take. So, and actually, I like Quantum of Solace, and I like this. I like the song. I know the song is like pretty much dumped on, I think, but I think the song, the what is it, Jack White, Alicia Keys, right? I think that's really good. Although they do a little bit of editing of the song, I would have liked to have heard the full length version on the actual opening title sequence. But that's really great. Yeah. But anyway, that's Quantum of Solace. Let's see. So people seem to be sharing my Quantum of Solace appreciation. So that's good. I'm glad. I mean, you don't have to like the film, of course, but if you do, that's great too. If not, that's also great. Don't worry about it. No, not a problem. Let's see. Sorry about this. Okay, so going back here. Okay, so let's see more. Diamonds might seem to be okay. The consensus. Mike's also saying diamonds. Justice says on Her Majesty's guy. So I'm also an on Her Majesty's guy. That's great. Yeah, I love that film. Raymond says For Your Eyes Only. Okay, great. Let's see. Let's see. Never Say Never Again. Yes. Yeah. I guess I'll if I forget this is I can't do impersonations, but this is my Largo impersonation from Never Say Never Again. So if you can get it, like, right, okay. So, all right, now let's see. Okay. Yeah, Never Say Never Again. I would be happy to do Never Say Never Again. That's not a problem. Oh, you're all, but my martini is still dry. I think that's the line, I think. But let's see here. Yeah, but no. Erwin says, can we talk about Never Say Never Again? Of course, yeah, not a problem. I'm perfectly happy to talk about it. We will. And we will also do 67 Casino Royale, as Zyrosa points out. And Damn Fool, our dear friend, has already talked about, by the way. Let's see. And like so. All right. Any last takers? Let's see. Yeah, just as Damn Fool says, I've done Casino Royale and Never Say Never Again, and plan on doing the main series at some point. That would be great. That would be great. I'd love to hear about it. That would be great. You do much better job than I do. So you let me know when you start that, my friend. Let's see. Quantum, yes, Quantum. Wolfrat says, I quite like Quantum. Kubrick says, Quantum of Solace is hated so much. Scrappy Coco, oh gosh, here we go. Quantum of Solace was the only Greg Bond film that felt like Casino Royale sequel to me. It's the only one that went for the grit instead of the massive scale in the blockbuster film. Yeah. Cooper Glover says, I like the Quantum song too. Sexy Monkey, I don't hate it like others do. Gaza Mania, Quantum of Solace, the second 2-second quick edits are my only problem. Yeah, everything's quick. And even the gun, like, it's all that. It's just, it's Quantum of Solace, it ends. Wow. Yeah, it's just all, it's very, very fast. Yeah. But, yeah, Damn Fool, Quantum is the roughest and in ways the most interesting of the new films. Yes, we've spoken about the opera sequence, right, which is one of the great sequences of the Craig era, I think. But all right, I'm gonna unhook my mic here, but let's because I have to plug in the battery source, so just the sound's gonna be off for a second. But I'm not gonna leave before we decide the next one. So just give me 1 second here. There we go. Okay, sorry, the sound has fallen in quality a little bit, but now just in the last moments, let's figure out a let's see. Okay, so ONET is here. Hello. Quantum is top better than Spectre. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, Mike Eli said, I'm willing to give Quantum another chance, but I was so let down by the film after Casino Royale. Yeah. Damples, the game has been played and I have lost. Yes. Yeah. Let's see. Respect the face. So much info. Thank you. Halifax says, I did not know people hated Quantum. LOL. Let's see here. Spectre, fun. Spectre was lots of fun. Diamonds. It's it. Okay, thank you, Zyrotha. So diamonds, let's do it. Diamonds are forever. That's the next one. So we'll figure out a time and date. I don't know what it is now, but we'll do it next time. So the next one will be Diamonds Are Forever, and it's a very interesting film. And I look forward to it very much. I think that's also one that probably is somewhat. My sense is it's somewhat controversial in terms of how some people seem to really like it, some people really seem to be not so much. But I'm gonna I'll let's do Diamonds Are Forever. I'm on the like it camp, and so I'm and although I must admit that my my take on diamonds has been an ongoing evolving thing. When I was young and I saw it, I really didn't like it at all. But then when I just kept on watching it over and over the years, I grew to really be able, at least in my own way, to enjoy it. And now it's a very enjoyable film. It's very odd, very quirky, but I think that's part of its inherent charm, and that's part of its point. And a lot of the things, for the longest time, baffled me. I had no idea what was going on in a lot of the things there. But now it's a great time, and I will look forward to uh, to um, to the discussion, and hopefully we'll go from there. Yes, Damfool says. um, uh, I love how Sean Connery says that word. By the way, Damfool, alimentary, alimentary, Doctor Leiter. Yes, yes. When the joke about right Tom Mankiewicz and Cubby Broccoli, like, yeah, no one's gonna get it, right? Oh yeah, one doctor in the audience got it, haha, or something like that. Yes, it's whatever the joke was that Tom Mankiewicz recounts in the documentary or the commentary. Yeah, um, yeah. Uh, And Erwin says, great choice also gives me the chance to plug Modesty Blaze endlessly, as there's a great Bond spoof, mostly set in Amsterdam. Oh, yes. Thank you very much. So we'll do that. And I love the bit, one of my favorite bits. I can't quite. Should I do it now? Okay, I'll do it. I'll end. I'm so sorry. I always do this. I go. So here we go. So one of my favorite bits in Diamonds Are Forever is this bit, right? Which is, excuse me, it goes like this. And like, so I love that, you know. That's one of my favorite parts of Diamonds Are Forever. Is that bit. So yeah, that's really funny. But okay, so we'll do Diamonds Are Forever, and I'll announce it next time. I'll announce it next time when my schedule is settled. So yeah. Dan Fool says I tried to open my Connor stream with that. Yeah, yeah. So that's great. Although I don't know. Is it kind? I mean, what is his impersonation kind of offensive? And what he does, like he says, who is your floor? And all this time. But that moment is just totally out. Like, what does that? What spy does that? I mean, I would love to see this kind of thing done by, like, whatever it is, Ricky Tarr, in a John le Carré, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy type. Like, I would love to see Tom Hardy's Ricky Tarr in the film Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy do that thing with his arms like this. That would be fantastic, to sort of see what's happened. And like George Smiles, oh, and so you decided to stand in the corner. What were you? Oh, great. Anyway, sorry, just going overboard. And of course, another great John Barry score, Winton Kid, Blofeld. Of course, that's another deck of cards altogether. Just the many faces of Blofeld. What is going on? Who is Blofeld? What's this? What is this? Um, and the like, and what's the plan? What the heck is going on? Like, what is all this stuff going on? I have no idea. It's great, absolute great fun time. And Slumber, and Shady Tree, and his acorns, and right? What taste, style, yes, and he hasn't changed his act in such a long time, right? And the like, and Willard White and all this. That's great stuff, and the way that it announces places of geography. Diamonds Are Forever. There's a great, like, it starts right. Uh, 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 like, I can't do it right, but it's the great overdubbing, and this wonderfully stereotypical, like, this is supposed to be Japan, so this wonderfully stereotypical, like, little, like, 30-second bit in Japan, and where is he? And it's like, ah, I can't do it. What does he say? He's supposed to say Cairo, but it's of course overdubbed. He's like, Cairo, and he's got that, shape of his mouth there. Ah, and then the way that Willard White says, what is it, Baja, right? Cairo and Baja. I mean, just examples of how wonderfully quirky this film is. So, anyway, and like, I think it's ludicrous, off the wall, potentially quite offensive, but again, we just have to go with it, and that's just part of the situation of not just James Bond films, but other films from this era and how they age now. So that's just part of watching the film. But that stuff aside, it's incredibly in a really creative, fun thing. Even the whole bit with the car and the whole, like, da na na na, right, and it just goes like that, and it's interesting. Anyway, um, so we'll have to do this. We'll have to do this next time. So anyway, Diamonds Are Forever. So, my friends, thank you so much, and let's see. Let's see. Um, how should we end this? How should we end this? Um, okay, we'll end this. We'll end this live stream. So now we'll end it in about 30 seconds. So in the next 30 seconds, think about your favorite line of dialogue given by Hugo Drax in the film Moonraker. And at a count of 3, we will say it out loud to the camera. Okay, so now let's think. In the next 30 seconds or so, let's think. We've mentioned all this great dialogue in the film. Like, it can be Hugo Drax, it can be Bond, whoever. So let's say, what's your favorite line of dialogue from Moonraker? And just think to yourself right now, and at a count of 3, 3, 2, 1, we'll say it out loud, and that'll end the stream. So let me think of my favorite line of dialogue, or one of my favorite lines of dialogue from Moonraker. Um, okay, I have mine. Okay, so I'll wait another 20, 30 seconds here for yours. So we'll just have our line of dialogue, we'll say it, and that'll end the stream. So thank you very much, my dear friends, for your time today. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun for me, and I learned a lot from you as well. As always, I do. That's one of the main reasons why I do this. So anyway, thank you so much, and until we meet again, cheers. And so with that, let's end with our favorite lines of dialogue. So and so please let me know. 3, 2, 1. So 3, 2, 1. May I press you to a cucumber sandwich? All right. Thank you very much, my friends. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Erwin. Thank you. Yes, maybe I will have a cucumber sandwich for breakfast. Yes. Yes, see that some harm comes to him. Thanks. I found he had a crush on me. I love season. Yes. Brosnan, thank you. See that some harm comes to him. Daisuke will return. Thank you very much, my friends. I'm very happy. Thank you very much. Thank you. And it's time for me to have a cucumber sandwich. So cheers. Bye-bye. Oh, Raymond, sorry. Raymond, thank you. Thank you, my friends. Thank you. It's a great pleasure. The pleasure is all mine. So once again, may I press you to a